Story 1. My ex-wife cheated, then abandoned our daughter alone outside my house. I exposed her lies, got full custody, and she was ordered to pay me $25,000. It all starts with a heartbreaking discovery of my ex-wife's infidelity. My ex-wife Danielle and I were together for 6 years. Our relationship was the typical story of work colleagues who eventually fell in love. We both were working at the same company until I got offered a much better position in another company so we could date more openly. We eventually got more serious, got married, and had a beautiful daughter called Sarah. It had been years since I had seen my parents, so for Thanksgiving we decided to make plans to visit them and spend some time with them. Sarah also needed to spend some quality time with her grandparents to feel connected to my roots. When we arrived, we were warmly greeted by my parents who were extremely excited to meet Sarah. That night's dinner was great with my parents as we talked about all the moments we had missed being there for each other. Sarah was getting tired, so I excused myself to put her to bed as Danielle and my parents continued to talk. Like all kids, she started pleading with me to allow her to play video games with her for some time. Looking at her pleading eyes, I finally gave in. We played a game on her tablet for a while. It was so interesting that I lost track of time until I realized it was too late and she needed to sleep. I took the tablet from her, put her to bed, and headed out. I heard Danielle still talking to my parents, so I sat down on the couch in our living room to continue playing the game on the tablet. I was busy playing when suddenly there was a text message notification on the top. I couldn't help but glance at it. It was from someone named Chad who said, "Missing you already." I immediately froze in the middle of the game as the words sank in. I couldn't comprehend what I had just read. Why was my 8-year-old daughter getting texts like this from someone named Chad in the middle of the night? I immediately checked the message tab and quickly realized that the tablet was connected to Danielle's cloud. That's when it hit me. This tablet actually belongs to Danielle. She would have had her iPad synced with this tablet. Hence, the messages that were coming to her phone were also showing up here. She must have forgotten to log out of her iCloud account on this tab before giving it to our daughter. Confusion etched my face as I tried to deduce why she was getting this kind of message. I opened the Messages app with a bated breath and clicked on Chad's message. My mouth was wide open in shock as I scrolled through the message, and I discovered a series of intimate conversations between Danielle and Chad. I clicked on his contact picture and gasped in surprise, realizing that he was our neighbor. I had hardly met him once or twice, but reading my ex-wife's messages with him, it was clear that their relationship had crossed into dangerous territory. Their texts were filled with details of all their meetings and plans. They had talked about our relationship in excruciating detail, where Danielle had revealed how she didn't love me anymore, but didn't want to be the one at fault for our relationship to break off. She mentioned how much she hated the fact that I didn't give her any attention because of my work and that she was glad to get all the love and attention from him. Chad in turn had written how he loved being our neighbor, so he could come over to visit her whenever me and Sarah were out. Their text messages were so graphic and disgusting to read that I wanted to puke in disgust. I couldn't believe that I had stumbled upon Danielle's secret affair. It was a shocker, the kind that makes your heart race and your mind struggle to process the reality unfolding before you. My mind raced and I started taking photos on my phone of all their text messages. My hand shook and I was worried that Danielle might come over and find out that I had discovered her affair. I wanted to keep it quiet for the time being. I didn't want my daughter to see these kinds of messages accidentally while playing on the tablet. She might be a kid, but she wasn't stupid. I didn't want my daughter to find out about any of this because she was too young to go through this. After I had collected all the evidence, I uncinced and wiped the tablet clean, knowing that Danielle's phone would also have all these messages as additional proof. The entire night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep, trying to understand why my wife would cheat on me. The next day, with my daughter Sarah out for brunch with my parents, I decided it was time to confront my ex-wife about the affair that tore our family apart. I needed answers, and she couldn't escape this time. When I brought up the affair, she flat out refused to accept it, like a stubborn child caught in a lie. But I had evidence. Messages, calls, and the undeniable truth. As I showed her the proof, she crumbled. The tears started flowing, and the guilt she'd been hiding spilled out through her sobs. She admitted to everything. She said she needed me but blamed my work schedule for her wrong turns. Chad, the guy who'd become a wedge in our marriage, apparently played Mr. Comforter during the rough patches. She regretted it all, or so she said. I asked the one question I dreaded hearing the answer to: how long had this affair been going on? Her answer hit me like a punch in the gut. She replied that she had been sleeping with Chad on and off for a whole year. Couldn't believe it. A year of betrayal from my partner while I worked my ass off to provide for our family. Disgust washed over me. It was one thing to suspect, another to have it confirmed in such plain words. The weight of her confession settled in the room like a dark cloud. The trust we'd built over the years shattered, and all I felt was the raw pain of betrayal. There were no fancy words to describe it, just a sickening feeling deep in my gut. At that moment, I broke down. Tears streamed down my face, and I couldn't hold back the flood of emotions that overwhelmed me. My ex-wife Danielle continued to attempt to explain herself, but her words were drowned out by the tumultuous chaos of our shattered marriage. The fight between us continued, escalating with each revelation. We were deep into the confrontation when my parents returned from taking Sarah out for brunch. They looked at our faces, reading the distress and turmoil written all over them, concern etched on their faces. My dad took Sarah to her room, trying to shield her from the storm that had erupted. Alone with my mom, I spilled the painful truth about Danielle's infidelity. My mom listened, her face transitioning from confusion to disbelief and finally settling into a deep frown. Danielle, on the other hand, continued to cry as if she were the victim, not the perpetrator, attempting to justify herself. Danielle spilled out a string of excuses about how my demanding work schedule had driven her astray, and how she would have never done something like this had she received my attention. According to her, Chad had become her source of comfort during our rough patches, and I shouldn't be blaming her right now. She regretted it now, she claimed. My mom, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the situation and struggling to understand everything, went red in the face when I mentioned that Danielle's affair had been going on for a year. She looked Danielle straight in the eyes, her disappointment evident, and without mincing words she asked Danielle to leave their house immediately. The room fell silent as I stared at Danielle, who continued to cry and act like a victim. I told her that she needed to leave and that I and Sarah would continue to spend the holidays here and would return later as we had originally planned before all this fiasco happened. Danielle, feeling our judgment, stopped arguing, simply nodded, and walked upstairs to pack her clothes. In about 10 minutes, she was gone. As the door closed behind Danielle, the weight of the situation settled in the room, and the silence that followed was deafening. Alone with my thoughts, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: betrayal, anger, and a profound sadness that seemed to consume me. The next few days were excruciating as I navigated the aftermath of the revelation. My mom, having witnessed the turmoil firsthand, filled my dad in on all the shocking details. His reaction mirrored hers, a mix of disbelief and shock. The betrayal cut deep, not just for me but for my parents who had welcomed Danielle into our family with open arms. Sarah, our innocent 8-year-old, kept asking where her mom was. Faced with the challenge of protecting her from the harsh truth, I lied, telling her that Danielle had to leave abruptly due to work commitments. The pain in her eyes when she asked about her mom tore at my heart, but I couldn't bring myself to expose her to the harsh reality just yet. The next few days were a blur of emotions and attempts to cope with the shattered pieces of our family. My parents provided a pillar of support, offering comfort and understanding as we processed the betrayal that had unfolded. The holidays, initially planned as a joyous family reunion, now felt tainted by the lingering shadows of deceit. We tried to salvage what was left of the festive season, but the air was heavy with a weight of unspoken words and broken promises. Each moment was a reminder of what had been lost, and the pain became palpable as we struggled to find a sense of normalcy. Inevitably, the time came when I had to face the reality of returning home. The idea of stepping back into my familiar surroundings where my wife had slept with another man was pissing me off. I knew our marriage was over and I needed to let Danielle know so she could move out soon. I had already made up my mind and no one was going to change my mind. When we returned home, Danielle was waiting for us. She looked at us with pleading eyes, an apology hanging on her lips. Sarah, oblivious to the storm that had unfolded, ran into her arms, embracing her as if nothing had changed. It was a painful sight, witnessing the innocence of a child juxtaposed against the wreckage of a broken marriage. I decided that we needed to talk, and we retreated to a private space away from Sarah's curious eyes. Danielle started to apologize again, her words filled with remorse and promises of change. She claimed she had cut off all contact with Chad, but I couldn't help but scoff at the notion. Chad, after all, was still our neighbor, and there was no way she could have severed all ties. A laugh escaped my lips as I confronted her with this reality. She looked at me bewildered, as if I had lost my mind. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her that it was too late for apologies, that no matter what she said or did, I was done with her. The shock in her eyes deepened as the weight of my words sank in. "You cut off contact with Chad? Really?" I asked, my voice tinged with sarcasm. "He lives next door, Danielle. You can't avoid him even if you wanted to." She stammered, trying to explain, but my patience had run out. I couldn't bear the lies or deception any longer. "This is too late," I asserted firmly, each word carrying the weight of finality. "I'm divorcing you." Her eyes widened in shock, a mix of disbelief and realization playing across her face. The truth had finally caught up with her, and the consequences of her actions were laid bare. She tried to plead, to make amends, but my decision was resolute. I had endured enough, and the only way forward was to sever the ties that bound us. As the gravity of my words settled between us, silence hung in the air. There were no more words left to say. The damage was irreparable. Eventually, Danielle did move out and I filed for divorce. Little did I know that the battle for custody over our child, Sarah, would turn our lives upside down. The divorce dragged on for months. Thankfully, we had signed a prenup so Danielle and her lawyer couldn't demand me to pay her anything, especially after the evidence of her having an affair and destroying our marriage in the first place. Amidst the legal proceedings, we reluctantly agreed on a 50-50 custody arrangement for the sake of our beloved child. I dutifully paid the child support as mandated by the court, hoping it would contribute to providing a stable life for our daughter. Danielle moved back to her parents' place, and despite the shattered remnants of our marriage, I still maintained a decent relationship with her parents. The weeks were divided with Sarah spending equal time with both of us. The arrangement was meant to ensure that our daughter would grow up feeling loved and supported no matter the circumstances. During the days when Sarah was with me, I made an effort to create special moments. We went shopping for essentials, and I indulged her in picking out new toys or clothes. However, as time passed, I noticed a troubling pattern. My ex-wife seemed to be neglecting our daughter's needs, refusing to let her wear nice clothes or enjoy the little luxuries that should be a part of every child's life. Whenever I went to meet Sarah, she would be wearing old clothes, and it perplexed me as I knew she had a closet full of new outfits. I cautiously broached the topic with Danielle, asking why Sarah wasn't wearing the new clothes I bought for her. Danielle brushed it off, claiming that Sarah was saving them for special occasions. I felt a twinge of confusion but decided not to push the matter. Co-parenting was challenging enough, and I wanted to maintain a semblance of peace for Sarah's sake. Despite the unanswered questions, I focused on providing the best experiences for Sarah during our shared moments. We made memories together, whether it was a simple day at the park or a more elaborate outing to her favorite places. It became our way of navigating the complexities of our altered family dynamic. I never wanted my daughter to grow up thinking that we didn't love her, so even though my marriage had failed, I put all my love and attention on my daughter. Now, turning to the story, just last month as I drove back to my house after my office, I was met with an unexpected sight. My daughter standing alone in the driveway. Concerned and somewhat shocked, I got out of the car and hurried over to her, fearing that something might have gone wrong. I asked her what happened and Sarah explained that Danielle had dropped her off an hour ago on my porch. I was shocked at how recklessly my ex-wife could just drop our daughter off without informing me first. Had I known, I would have left work immediately and not let our daughter stand outside for an hour. Danielle knew that I usually got off work at 6 p.m. and was back at home by 6:15. But that day I had some work pending, Hence it was already 7:30. I was upset that my ex-wife had just left our daughter all alone where anything could have happened to her. After ushering my daughter inside my place and heating up some pasta for our dinner, I dialed Danielle to express my concern and frustration. Danielle picked up the call, and I could hear a lot of noise in the background. The noise in the background sounded like a lively environment, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Danielle was at a bar or some social gathering. Frustration crept into my voice as I asked her why she hadn't given me a heads up before dropping our child off. Her response caught me off guard. Danielle retorted that Sarah was my daughter too, emphasizing that parenting was a shared responsibility. Her nonchalant attitude only fueled my frustration, but as I continued talking to her, I began to sense that something wasn't right. There was a slurred quality to her speech, and it dawned on me that she might be under the influence of alcohol. Deciding that this wasn't the appropriate time to have a serious conversation, I told Danielle that we would discuss this matter when I dropped off Sarah the next day. She laughed dismissively and suggested that I read the note she had given our daughter. Perplexed, I called for Sarah and asked about the note that her mother had apparently given her. Sarah fished around in her pocket and handed me a crumpled note. The message inside explained that my ex-wife did not want to take care of our daughter anymore due to the inadequacy of the child support payments. I froze in shock and bewilderment. I was paying hefty child support every month, and despite this, Danielle had the audacity to demand more from me by putting our daughter in danger. It struck me as a desperate move, but instead of reacting emotionally, I decided to take a strategic approach. Swiftly, I called Child Protective Services, CPS, and the police to file an official complaint against my ex-wife for abandoning our child. I had CCTV footage which proved that she had left our child on the driveway all alone. The police took this very seriously and asked me for the location so they could arrest her for putting our child in danger. After filing an official complaint, I talked with my lawyer about full custody. Danielle had cheated on me, and I had let that go because of our child. But now that she had put my dear daughter in danger, I couldn't just let her go. We decided to file a motion to get full custody with the police report that I had filed against her for abandonment. Her parents called me in shock, wanting to know why Danielle was calling them from jail, and I filled them in. They were extremely concerned and shocked by the news. While they acknowledged that my actions were motivated by a desire to protect our child, they pleaded with me to reconsider pressing charges against Danielle. Despite their emotional appeal, I remained steadfast. The safety and well-being of my daughter were paramount, and I couldn't let Danielle's reckless actions slide. I explained to her parents that filing an official complaint was not an arbitrary decision but a response to a situation where Sarah's safety was compromised. I emphasized that the legal action was a necessary step to ensure that such incidents did not happen again. As I spoke with conviction about the need to prioritize Sarah's welfare, their pleas grew more desperate. They begged me to drop the charges, citing Danielle's mental state and the potential impact on her life. However, I stood firm, reiterating that I had tolerated much for the sake of our child but would not compromise when it came to her safety. The tension between us heightened as they grappled with the harsh reality of the situation. In their desperation, they proposed alternative solutions, like supervised visitations or counseling for Danielle. While I appreciated their concern, I couldn't ignore the fact that the abandonment incident had been a severe breach of trust. In the end, their pleas fell on deaf ears. I had made up my mind to pursue full custody to ensure a stable and secure environment for Sarah. I informed them that in a few days I would have someone go to their place and get everything that belonged to Sarah back to my place so Sarah could continue to stay here with me. When I informed Sarah about the new development, she was beyond ecstatic. I know how important it is for my child to have peace and stability in her life, so I was happy for us. In a few weeks, we were summoned to court. My lawyer presented my case, revealing the neglect and manipulation orchestrated by my ex-wife. We showed the judge the note that Danielle had given to Sarah to give to me while leaving her at my doorstep for over an hour without informing me. We also pointed out the fact that every time I bought my daughter something new, my ex-wife would refuse my daughter to wear it, which is why my daughter would always be dressed shabbily. While Danielle's lawyer tried her best to defend her client, the judge saw through Danielle's attempts to manipulate the situation and recognized that the child support meant for our daughter was being misused. perhaps for her own personal benefit. In a surprising turn of events, the judge ruled that not only was Danielle going to lose custody of our child, but she also had to pay a $25,000 penalty for misusing all the child support I had been paying her that year. The judge, understanding the gravity of her actions, ruled that this penalty would also be covering my legal fees. I was honestly not expecting this and had never in a million years thought that Danielle would get a penalty. It was a bitter victory, but one that secured a brighter future for my daughter, free from the clutches of a mother who had lost her way. Since this court ruling, I feel so at peace knowing that I am the only one who is going to be taking care of my daughter. As expected, my ex-wife and her family have continued to message me saying that I shouldn't have punished Danielle so harshly. They thought it wasn't a big deal that she abandoned our kid and kept telling me that I was going to be a terrible father. I would like to know if I am the asshole for taking action against my ex-wife for doing this to my daughter? Update 1. Thank you everyone for understanding the gravity of the situation and also understanding why I asked for full custody in the first place. I have no idea if Danielle is going through a mental breakdown, and honestly, I don't want to know that. Also, whatever may be the case, she should have talked with me first. She did not have to take such a drastic step by leaving our kid all alone in the driveway. The last couple of weeks have been bliss. I can do anything for my little one, hence I've been spending the last few days creating a routine for both of us. Our mornings now involve waking up together with me helping her get ready for school. I've even been watching numerous YouTube tutorials, gradually honing my skills and crafting the perfect ponytail for her. Regardless of what Danielle and her parents might believe, my commitment is unwavering. I'm determined to provide everything for Sarah so that she never feels like she's missing out on anything. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, so forgive me, but I have been very busy with my life. The reason for this update is a recent revelation from mutual friends about Danielle's pregnancy. Apparently, she's 3 months pregnant with Chad's child. When Chad learned about it, he pleaded with her not to proceed with the pregnancy, but Danielle insisted on keeping it. In response, he left her, which explained her erratic behavior lately. Danielle found herself in a financial bind. She couldn't turn to her parents for more money, fearing eviction. Consequently, she resorted to selling the new clothes I had been providing for Sarah. This clarified why our daughter couldn't wear the new outfits, and Danielle had been concocting stories about saving them for special occasions. It also dawned on me that her note demanding increased child support was likely an attempt to secure more funds for her second child. What disgusted me the most was the sheer irresponsibility of her actions. Despite being aware of her pregnancy, she left Sarah at my doorstep and went out drinking. It's a level of negligence that's difficult to fathom. I'm grateful I fought for full custody of my daughter, considering what Danielle might have put Sarah through with the arrival of her second child. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and life has been going great so far. Sarah and I have only gotten closer, and I can proudly say that I think I'm doing a good job as a single parent. Danielle has not attempted to contact me or show any inclination to meet Sarah over the last month, so hopefully she doesn't disturb our peace anymore. With New Year's on the horizon, I've arranged a surprise for Sarah, a trip to Disneyland. Knowing her deep love for all the Disney characters, I'm eagerly anticipating the joy that will light up her face when she discovers the magical adventure awaiting her. I'm determined to create beautiful memories and continue to cherish the moments we share. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My wife asked me to choose between my mom and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. Throwaway account. A little background. My mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born. My mom didn't really have a support system, so it was just the two of us. I never lacked anything because my mother worked all her life to give me the life I have today and didn't even have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I had very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and again, and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16. When I saw her getting sick and working at the same time, I wanted to help her by finding a job, But she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her and it was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades to get into the best universities. It's the only way I can protect myself when I can't anymore. Even at university, she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies. But she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. I met my wife there while both of us were volunteering. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet, she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought she loved my mother more than she loved me, and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for the bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies and found a job, we moved in together. But she wasn't comfortable that I called my mom every day. Remind you, those were 1-0 to 5-minute calls. But eventually, she stopped bringing it up. 2 years later, I bought a house for my mother because we never had a house in our name. We lived from apartment to apartment. So, for all the sacrifices she made, it was, for me, the least of it, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problem started with my wife, then girlfriend. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know I bought a house for her, as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She was uncomfortable receiving the house because of my wife and told me that wasn't necessary, that we could use it for us when we get married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her, that she could do with it whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our couple survived that. We got married, and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be close to her and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. My wife and I don't have children yet. We both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m., but since my mother is sick, I go to see her and come home at 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for 1 or 2 hours, and the rest of the time I spend with my wife. We go on dates. I always accompany her in her hobbies even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago, she told me that she thought about it and she thinks I prioritize my mother too much. She told me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I want to build with her. The truth is that I never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I do the dishes she likes. She didn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, flowers. I write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find. We go on a trip 1 weekend a month. I earn much more money than her. I told her to keep her money for herself, and I take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion, and I think I am easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers. But I realize that she tries to completely dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So I'm going to have a talk with her and put some very clear boundaries. If she doesn't want to, well, we're going to divorce. Just want it out of my chest. Update 1. My wife, 31F, asked me, 34M, to choose between my mom, 55F, and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. Hi guys. I keep getting messages asking me for an update. I wanted to do it sooner but couldn't spare time to do it properly. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for the comments and DMs in my last post. I tried to reply to everyone, but I couldn't. I read you all though. Before confronting my wife, I had time to reflect, and I came to the conclusion that I will never again let anyone in my life dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the time I should dedicate to her. So I decided to answer the ultimatum. But first, I wanted to know if there was another reason why she gave me this ultimatum. She replied that, nope. I asked her, apart from what she blamed me for, was there something she wanted to tell me but couldn't tell me? She said there was nothing and asked me to come to the point. So, I told her I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I think she was shocked because she wasn't talking. She was just staring at me. I tell her everything that was on my mind, that our values are too different. I was going through the worst moment of my life. My mother was sick. We did several tests with her. We still don't know what she's suffering from. We don't know her family medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me anxious to know that overnight I could find myself alone in the world. Yes, alone in the world, because in these difficult times all I needed was her support. But if my own wife thinks that I should give less attention to my mother, who is sick and who needs me more than ever, it's time to go our separate ways. She still didn't say anything, so I told her, I'm going to a hotel for now and we'll discuss later how we're going to separate. I took some of my things and left. The next day when I went to see my mother, she figured out something wasn't right, but I was not going to tell her I was separating from my wife, because she could not bear our relationship, especially since she was sick like that. I didn't want to add more torment to her. I never discussed my marriage issue with my mother anyway, so she does not know our problems. And honestly, she adores my wife too much, and my wife behaves as if she was her own mother, so I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mom ends up telling me that my wife didn't come by that day. Yes, my wife, who asked me to reduce my contact with my mother, was seeing her every day. And I never asked her to do anything for my mother. She calls my mother Mom. When she gets sick, she used to go to my mother so she would take care of her. It used to hurt me because it's as if I couldn't take care of her. But she said that this was not the same. The attentions of a mother are different. I told myself that it was her way of creating a mother-daughter bond that she never had, and I understood her. She even said her mother used to tell her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, that she almost aborted her and regrets not doing it. Only a monster could say that to her child. So I never said anything whenever she wanted my mother's attention. Besides, I received enough love to share with whoever wanted my mother. After I left home to study, she became a foster mom for children. She always did until 2 years ago. I've always loved each of the children with whom I still keep in touch and whom I consider to be my siblings. Once a year, we all went on vacation together for a week. The children, my mother, and my wife. I generally take 2 months of vacation, of which the 6 weeks I devoted to my wife. But the 2 weeks that I devote to my mother and the children, it was too much for my wife. Anyway, I'm rambling. So when my mom told me she didn't come to see her that day, I went back home because I was worried. I found her in the bathroom with her clothes on and red eyes, like she was crying all along. Seeing her like that was unbearable. I helped her out, but this woman who has so much pride collapsed in front of me with a lot of crying. I don't know if it was an hour or 2, but she kept crying, calmed down, crying again. I just stayed silent. She ended up telling me that deep down she never wanted me to involve any less in my mother's life. She was always jealous of our relationship. She was always jealous of the attention my mother gave to the other children. She knows that it wasn't rational, but she couldn't help constantly striving to be number one in my mother's heart. It was kind of a competition for her. So when I wanted to take care of my mom, she didn't want me to be the one taking care of her. I was honestly furious, without saying anything of course, but I wondered if she was a psychopath or something. We are talking about a person who is seriously ill and she is thinking about her damn competition, even if it means sabotaging the relationship I have with my mother and putting us in a situation where I wanted to divorce her. She told me that she was very jealous of me and that she would have liked to be in my place. If she had to choose, she would have even chosen to be my mother's child rather than my wife, even if I was the love of her life and the only man she ever known. She also told me that even if the world falls apart around me, I will remain stoic, that I live as if I don't need anyone and that I give everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me, and she never managed to get there. Only my mother could get there. At that moment, I did not know what else to say. I was hooked on this idea of competition so that I did not immediately grasp the scope of these words, but I still listened to her to the end. I put her to bed until she fell asleep, then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning, she was acting like nothing happened. She was being herself. She said, "I don't have to pity." I told her it was out of love. She was still my wife. She left to work and I'd do the same, but decided to stay at the hotel from the time being. During that time, I wondered what I could have made her do or say so that she could think about that. Deep down, I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place longer to make friends. It was heartbreaking every time we have to move. Between my 5 and my 15 years, I have moved more than 50 times, from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room. And since then, I think I've always lived my relationships like a squat. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be kicked out. But I thought with my wife I acted differently, but I guess not. So I thought maybe we didn't need to go that far. What we needed wasn't divorce but therapy. Then this happened. A little over a week after our discussion, I was called from the hospital. My wife had been hospitalized. She apparently did not feel well. I went to visit her, but she didn't want to see me. If you see the eyes I saw, I've never seen so much hate in just 2 eyes. I told her bestie so she can have her system support because she didn't want me there. I told my mom. She asked me what I had done to my wife so that she ended up in the hospital and that I should not stress a woman who was pregnant. I said, "What?" She told me my wife told her and asked her to keep it a secret because she wanted to tell me herself when she was ready. I don't know what was going through my head between anger that it was my mother who told me, or happiness at having to be a dad for the first time, in total confusion at the surreal situation. I went to my wife and told her I knew, but she looked at me again angrily and told me she had lost the baby and it was my fault. In an instant, I just learned my wife was pregnant but kept it from me, that I was going to be a dad, and that we lost the baby, and that she was accusing me of having caused something that I did not even know. She asked me to leave and I left. I always wanted children very early on. My wife wanted to put her career first. I understood and accepted. I've been trying to convince her for years, but without success. Now she gets pregnant, she doesn't tell me anything, she talks to my mother about it, and she says I caused her miscarriage. Since then, she says she didn't tell me anything because she wanted to first confirm if I could deal with all the responsibilities I give myself and raise a child at the same time. I don't understand her. And I admit, since then, I have a fierce hatred against her. I don't know how to look at her without having anger on me, and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home, but we don't talk to each other. I'm not going to stay with her. It's not possible. I started a session with a psychologist. He told me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't make a permanent decision on emotions that could be temporary, and that I should take time to see if there were things to salvage. Here is where I am. I don't know if I'll do another update. I took days off to be there for my wife and for my mother, but I'm feeling pretty depressed and I just want to get away from all this right now. Thank you, in any case, for giving me your point on your first post, for your support or your critics. Update 2. My wife, 31F, asked me, 34M, to choose between my mom, 55F, and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. Hi folks, it's been a while. I didn't intend to post again after my last one, but even though it's been months, I still get supports and people asking me where I am in my life. So I think I owe you at least one last update because your comments and DMs helped me a lot during a time I needed it the most. I don't know if it's going to be long or not, but let's go. About my wife. After she had a miscarriage, yes, she was definitely pregnant. I had to take care of her because she couldn't do it on her own. After what happened, I had nothing but anger and hatred in me. But as I said last time, if something is fragile enough to break, you have no choice but to treat it gently. I didn't want her to break. I didn't want to leave her in the worst time of her life, so I did my duty as a husband despite everything. Her mental state was getting worse. She thought she was still pregnant, and she was talking to herself. One night, she was delirious, mistaking me for her father and thinking that I was going to hurt her. I had to call the emergency room. Then, after examination, a psychiatrist advised me to have her hospitalized. That's what I did. She spent 6 weeks there. She was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. Doctors suspect delusional disorder too, and they also suspect that she was heavily abused as a child, but that's all they were allowed to tell me. She didn't want to see anyone, especially her family. She suggested that we communicate through letters, and every time I went there, I took her letter. Then the next day I dropped mine. It's crazy. I have the impression that in 2 months I got to know her better than the 10 years I spent by her side. That reminded me how a good person she used to be despite her flaws. She used to travel to participate in the construction of schools, wells, anything that can help people who lived in precariousness. She didn't just give money, she helped out with her own hands. She's the type to help a foreigner who doesn't speak the language catch his train until she misses her own train. Honestly, she was like a gold mine with lots of resources and kindness in her. Although we had money, we used to enjoy taking public transport to remember the time when we were penniless and enjoy life just because having each other were enough. We would travel without taking money and challenge each other to know how far we will get. That was the best moment of our lives. We were very close and in love. We thought nothing could break us. What has changed since then? We tried to figure it out in the letters we give each other. We talk about many things, I won't go into details. She owned up her mistakes and I owned up mine. She takes full responsibility for the consequences of her actions. She apologized for how she treated me and knows that the only possible outcome is that we divorce. She needs to heal and work on herself. She said she has a long way to go, and it wasn't fair for me. She said that given her condition, I wasn't going to talk to her about a divorce. She had to do it herself. There are some battles she needs to fight on her own, otherwise she will never be the best version she could be. She doesn't know how long it's going to take, but if she gets there and I haven't moved on, then she'll be happy to start again with me. I've always lived with the idea of fixing broken things rather than throwing them away. But that doesn't work with humans. You can't fix someone unless they want to be fixed, and I wouldn't have had the strength to fix someone because I'm putting all my remaining energy into trying to fix myself. If my wife hadn't made the decision she made, I myself would have proposed a divorce. Paradoxically, it was because she made the decision she made that I saw that there was hope for us. I then offered her a separation rather than a divorce, and a year from now, if we still want to get divorced, we'll get divorced. If we trust that we could be in a healthy relationship, then we'll get to know each other again, communicate, and try to do things differently. She agreed and said that was what she hoped. When she got out of the hospital, she didn't want us to meet because if we saw each other, she wouldn't have had the strength to keep her resolutions. For my part, I had not yet let go of all the negative feelings following the events that happened before her hospitalization, so in the end, it was best for both of us. We chose to continue to send each other letters, and that's fine with me for now. She was able to see my mother. She wrote me what my mother told her, that she will always be a mother figure to her despite the bad decisions she made, that she didn't have to compete for her love because she already had it, and that's one thing that will never change. She asked me if I was okay with her being in touch with my mother. I told her it was up to them, she didn't need my consent. However, she was not likely going to see my mother too often because I had decided to go to another country for my mother, so she could benefit from one of the best hospitals in the world, which is in Europe. About me. I've been in Germany for almost 1 month now. We are from France and I'm learning to delegate work. It's a resolution I made during my therapy. I needed therapy, and it was especially you guys who convinced me. I will always be grateful to you. The therapy sessions were so heavy and tiring that I didn't have the strength to do much after leaving my therapist's room, but it got better over time. I am currently working remotely. I go back to France once a week to settle things at work and continue my therapy sessions because I don't want to change therapists. I managed to devote time only to myself, which is actually good. One of my foster brothers wanted to come with us to Germany since he manages to work remotely too. He is a great help. In short, I'm getting better and better. About my mom. This is probably the most difficult subject to discuss, and I admit that I don't really want to talk about it. But I also think that talking about it here is good practice to be able to talk about it in my life. A few years ago, we lived from apartment to apartment, hotel to hotel. This is one of the worst times of our lives. The state always found us a place to sleep because we were a single mother and a child. It wasn't stable because we had to change places every time, but it was better than sleeping outside. My mother was, and still is, a very beautiful woman. It happened that she received sexual proposals for an apartment right in front of my eyes. I don't know what she went through with my dad, but she never wanted to be with another person because she says death doesn't stop a loving relationship from continuing. There was an association that used to take care of us by always finding for us a place to stay at night. One day, one of the people who were in charge to find us places to sleep wanted us to stay in his apartment the time that they find us a better place because we were in a very unsanitary hotel. My mother didn't want to go, but I convinced her to go because the idea of sleeping warm in a good bed was all I could think of. But after we had dinner at his place, he started making a move on my mother, who stopped him right away. He told us it was either that or we get out of his house. So we left. We went back to the hotel where we were, but our room was already taken. There was nothing we could do, at least that day. So we chose to sleep outside. At some point while sleeping, we were woken up by a group of men who were trying to rape my mother. They hit me so hard that I was even afraid to try to help my mom. Some other men, who I guess came back from a party, heard the screams and came to help us. Our attackers fled. I always said that my mother was almost raped. That's what I always said, and I ended up believing it. But my mother was indeed raped before my eyes. I finally said it. My mother was raped before my eyes, and I couldn't do anything. If that day we had thrown ourselves into each other's arms and cried together, maybe things would have been different. But she got up, took my arm, and told me that this place was not safe, that we had to look for a safer place. That was all. We never talked about that day again. We carried on with our lives as if nothing had happened. Things got better eventually. She worked hard so that I could be successful. She invested all the money she earned in her entire life on my project. And today I owe her the company I created. How did she manage to survive the hell she'd been through? Ever since I came to terms with the idea that she was raped, all I wanted was to tell her about it. But it's not about me, it's about her. She's the one who experienced the worst. I would so much like to talk to her about it, but I don't know what good can come out of it after so many years. That's it. That's all. As for today, her condition is improving. The future looks brighter than it did a few months ago. Well, I think that's all. This will be my last post. To all who have followed me in those hard times, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish you the best in your life. May what you have left to live be better than what you have already lived. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Bill married the neighbor he was cheating with, and now they're harassing me to make their triplet daughters the flower girls at my wedding, even though I already promised my cousins. Hello, everyone. I, 25F, am getting married to my fiancé, Jackson, 25M, this year in August. When I was 5, I met my husband when I was in the woods near a Catholic church he attended near my house. I found him lost, and I guess we just never stopped hanging out since then, and I'm glad for that. Anyways, my husband has 5 siblings. John, 35M, Jessica, 32F, Jacob, 30M, Joy, 27F, and Janice, 15F. For clarification, this story is about my eldest, John. His ex-wife, Grace, 34F, had 2 kids together, Julia, 13F, and Peter, 10M. Well, when I was 16, Grace's parents were tragically killed in the alleyway while walking together for quality time around sunset. They were both mugged. I won't get into the details, but the aftermath was devastating. Sure, the killer got life in prison, but Grace was devastated, so devastated that she was placed in the mental ward since she had a horrible mental snap. She was in there for a year when John served her with divorce papers. Why? Well, after only 2 damn months of Grace being in the mental ward, he had started an affair with their single neighbor, Paige, 35F. This only drove Grace further down her spiral, and she is still in there to this day, 9 years later. John and Paige rushed to get married only 6 months after John's divorce was final. I was so angry because I knew how deeply he hurt not only Grace but Julia and Peter. I've known them both since they were born and always saw them like family. My parents found out and didn't want me visiting them anymore, but I just couldn't because I felt like I'd be leaving them behind. Well, 3 years into their marriage, they got pregnant with 3 triplet girls. After the girls were born, Peter was paid more attention to since he was such a good big brother. However, Julia was shoved to the side. I was pissed because John was basically replacing her with his 3 new girls. Julia spent countless nights with me at my parents' house since I was 19, but my parents allowed me to stay home for college to save money on housing. Needless to say, I never fought for a relationship or tried to talk to John or Paige whenever I visited Julia and Peter, mostly to take them out to get out of that hellhole. Fast forward to 2 years ago, Jackson proposed. It was a sweet moment because it was where we had our first date, and it was absolutely magical. We knew we shouldn't get married too early since we were only 23 at the time. I did accept the proposal, but we still needed some time. We announced our engagement when it happened, and only friends and family contacted us. Julia and Peter did, but John or Paige never reached out. Now that we're planning to get married this year in August, we started to really delve into planning for the past few months. One day, I was reviewing the venue for the color scheme me and Jackson wanted with my mom when my phone rang. I didn't pick it up at first because it was in the kitchen while I was in the living room, so I couldn't reach it in time. However, when it rang again, I was surprised to see it was Paige. When I picked up, she made small talk. I played along until the topic of the wedding came up. She then asked about who the flower girl would be, and she soon asked if her 3 triplet girls, 6F, could fill the roles despite them being pretty old. 2 younger cousins of mine have always wanted to be the flower girls, and I promised them that they could when I first announced my engagement. I didn't plan to break that promise, and I told Paige that I couldn't do that since I made my promise to my cousin already. Paige immediately berated me, and long story short, she hung up super pissed. Later that night, Jackson and I were in bed when I told him what happened. Jackson said not to worry about it, since she can't do anything about it. Since she had her wedding already, this is ours. I nodded and smiled, and we left it at that. Now, for the past month, I've been getting bombarded on Facebook and basically all social media and my phone number by Paige, John, and their friends and family for me not giving their daughters what they wanted, especially Jessica, the eldest sister in their family. I wasn't surprised because when I was 16, she got pregnant with her sister's boyfriend, and they got married when their affair daughter was a year old. I may make a separate post regarding that, but with all the harassment I'm getting, I'm starting to think I may be the a-hole. Besides, I want my wedding day to make sure everyone is in good spirits and to go into my marriage with a good head. So I just wanted to come here and ask, am I the a-hole for not letting my eldest triplet daughters be my 3 flower girls? Edit. I think I should also add some vital info. So, first off, John is a corporate lawyer with a lot of connections, so I'm not sure if threatening him to leave me alone or anything like that would help, like someone mentioned. Also, I saw and replied to a comment that implied I had a grudge against the triplets. I'll add it here and say I don't have anything against the triplets. It's ridiculous to blame them for existing when they didn't ask for it nor ask for such horrible people for parents. I'm also seeing blocking on FB and social media. I've done that and I'm considering changing my number, but I have to get some affairs in order before I can, mostly letting family members and trustworthy friends know. Also, my parents know about this and are trying to help the best they can. I've also alerted my future in-laws about this, and they said they'd talk to John and Paige. One thing to also mention is that my in-laws cut John off after what he did to Grace, but re-established contact when the triplets were born, understandable since at the end of the day, they are their grandchildren despite what their parents have done. Update 1. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all the messages and comments on the last post. I never thought this would get a lot of attention, let alone a small amount of it. So just to update you all, I followed much advice and I have blocked many of John and Paige's family that were blasting me. Also, I have seen that Jackson should stick up to his brother. He has done that. However, John simply doesn't listen to anyone. It could be because he finds himself entitled not to for being the eldest sibling or being a lawyer. Not sure. But my future in-laws did talk to him and threatened him for me that he won't be allowed into the wedding. While that was a bit invasive of them to make that threat without my acknowledgement, I'm glad they did since John would more likely listen to them than to me. But that's not entirely what this update is about. As I mentioned in my previous post, I mentioned that I picked up Julia to get away from her toxic household. Well, last time I was there, last night so we could go night driving, John's 3 triplet girls, who were all 6, rushed up to me and told me they were so excited to be a huge part in the wedding. I was confused and immediately realized that Paige wouldn't look at me. I didn't want to confront her and gently tried to tell the girls that while I appreciate their enthusiasm, I already had flower girls in mind. It took a couple of minutes and surprisingly they took it well. I was confused but decided to leave it at that. I took Julia and we had a nice drive. We went to the park and we just hung out and talked on a bench. I asked her pretty bluntly and not really expecting an answer. If the triplets ever really wanted to be a part of the wedding. This was a surprise to Julia because she knew I was getting married but didn't really think the triplets wanted to be a big part. Nor have they talked about it to her or Peter. I was even more confused and decided to try and talk to John when I saw him when I dropped Julia off. I tried to talk to John but Paige said to me to piss off. Like, what? What did I do? When I got home, I waited for Jackson to be in bed. It's our safe space to always talk. I didn't want to talk to my parents since they're both busy and stressed with house renovations and my grandma's heart health. So I didn't want to put them under more pressure. When I told Jackson, he said that he too was contacted by John during the time I was out with Julia that I needed to do this. The crazy thing is neither of us even know why. Jackson said that he'd again tell his parents to deal with it. This morning I woke up and decided to call out of work to just have a mental day to myself. And I just got back from walking around the mall and getting coffee. I got some plushies I found cute to decorate the bed. Anyways, no word yet, so I'm just going to try and get as much mental breaks when I can when I'm not worried about this, work, and the wedding and some family issues aside from this. I'll update when I get any clarification on why John and Paige want their daughters to be in the wedding so badly. Update 2. Hi again. Before going into the update, I do want to address something. I saw a comment saying my fiancé needs to stick up for me and confront John on his own. While I do agree that Jackson should stick up for me, John just won't listen to any of his siblings that don't agree with him, no matter how wrong he is. The only reason my future MIL and FIL can get to him is most likely because they're his parents and know how to get him to listen better. I don't know and really don't care to know. All that matters is that they can get through to him. Now for the update. So just last night, I got the whole story. I won't dive into it, but to the people who said Paige was using the girls as a way to be accepted into the family, congratulations. You win the grand prize for being absolutely correct. Paige and John also said it wasn't fair that only Julia was getting to be a bridesmaid. She is, by the way, in case some people were hoping she would be, while their triplets don't have any significant role. Well, again, I have a much better connection with Julia and Peter than I do the triplet girls. So yeah, guess who is fully blocked and uninvited from the wedding? Also, just this morning, Jackson himself told them they were uninvited before blocking them on both his and my devices since I was still asleep and he goes to work before me. I also had to block Jessica. I might make a full story on her and why she's also basically estranged because she was berating me and calling me callous and cruel for punishing 3 little girls. I just blocked her since after reading countless comments I know I'm not the a-hole and that talking to her won't do any good for me. So, block 2. I'm also following some advice and will look into extra security personnel for the wedding so John and Paige don't try to come. I don't know why it took internet strangers to tell me to block them to finally go through with it. But glad I did since I guess just my older brother telling me wasn't really working. Anyways, thank you all so much for advice and your comments and I'll be sure to update after the wedding. Update 3. Hello all. This isn't the biggest update. So, my fiancé is no longer my fiancé. He is now my husband. We got married just yesterday and now we're in our new home planning to go to our honeymoon next week. The wedding itself went wonderful. I didn't find out anything about John, Paige, even about Jessica and Tim. My issues with them on my profile. Thankfully I follow your guys' great advice of giving the security a password to ensure they can't come in. Also, I was able to get Julia and Peter to the wedding thanks to the help of my now MIL and FIL. I love to be able to see all of them, that Julia was a bridesmaid and we let Peter help with the music since he is pretty tech savvy. I don't know if I said that in one of my last updates. Haha. I also finally got into contact with Grace. Yay! I haven't been able to do that with all the wedding prep and the family drama. So it was nice to talk to her. I asked her if she wished to attend, but she said she didn't know if she was ready to come into the outside world but would love videos and photos. I was sad but understood where she was coming from since she was in the mental institution she is at right now for nearly 10 years at this point. I also want to help her get parental rights over Julia and Peter since the kids deserve their mother in their life. Their real mother who actually cares about them and not just for appearance. She is on board and now I got this in my hands. Also, People who are wondering about if John and Paige tried to intervene. They did, but as I said, security did wonderful to keep them out. But when me and Jackson were now in our marital bed, I got a text from a different number and realized I was in a group chat now between John, Paige, Jessica, and Tim. I didn't bother to read any of the messages, but then saw a couple that had Jessica exploiting secret things I told her growing up since we were close. She was talking about bad ancestors, bad live family members, mistakes I made, etc. I thought I'd be super pissed, but I was just indifferent when I saw the message since I don't really care about those things anymore. Anyways, that's the update for now. I don't know if I'll update again. I might, since this whole wedding might lead to bigger family drama, but in case I don't, thank you all for listening to my rant and giving me advice on this matter. Edit. Hey y'all, just a small edit, but we just arrived in Brussels. We'll be here for about 2 weeks. We plan to spend the first week and a half together and spend the last few days with Jackson's mom's side of the family. The last few days I'll have my notifications off, except messages and whatnot, and we'll be back during the nighttime hours when I can and not too tired. Update 4. Hey guys! It's been a while since I last posted here. Just a quick sum up of what's been going on lately. Grace is being re-evaluated for her medications and treatment with the possibility of being released, and my FIL managed to find a great lawyer for her to rearrange the custody. But that, however, is not what this update is about. Back 2 weeks ago, me and Jackson were in my parents' house while they took my grandma out of state to see my mom's younger brother and his family. While I was cooking and Jackson was in the living room trying to fix something with the TV, that's when the doorbell rang. I looked through the cameras and I saw it was Paige. Jackson went to the door and slightly opens it with the chain on. Paige was screaming and crying, asking if we were happy her life was falling apart. Despite my better judgment, we brought her into the house since I didn't want her to make a scene for any neighbors to see. I sat her down and tried to relax her a bit with some water. She downed half the bottle before she wiped her eyes. I was angry because why did she have the audacity to do this? Come to my parents' property to talk to us? Paige soon told us why she was there. She told us that after our wedding she and John had a huge fight where so many things were said. Paige was told that she was the biggest mistake in John's life, how he hated her and wished she was never his neighbor, etc. She said he also regretted having their 3 girls since that seemed to also damage his relationship with Julia and Peter. Despite what I have said on here, John really was a good dad to them until he forced them all to be one big family with his new kids while also pushing Julia to the side. That didn't make any sense to me. She said John told her she was the reason why he was so estranged from his family and whatnot. She also confessed that this has always been the case. John would verbally abuse her ever since they got married and only had kids with her, hoping that would soften his family to him again. I was baffled, and so was Jackson. I now had a guess that Paige was only the way she was because of the abuse she suffered by John. There was a lot more said, but Jackson ended up suggesting some therapists to her since she clearly had a lot to figure out. That's why I love Jackson so much. Despite this woman doing so much to us, he still was willing to help her. Paige then left. Her daughters were being left under the care of Julia and Peter. I don't know what's going to happen now, but one thing I know for sure is that I want Paige to get out of that marriage, not just for her but for the triplets since they are innocent in all this and they're just 6. I am also hoping that Julia and Peter are taken away from John's care, whether or not he is abusing them or not, because for all we know, he's seriously sick in the head. Edit to make. I want to confirm that I don't 100% trust Paige on this, so I am taking what she said at face value. However, not really at the same time, because if what she is saying turns out to be true, I want her to get out of this situation any way that I can. Update 5. So it's been another 2 months since my last update and things have gotten interesting. I found out from my FIL that Paige was actually being verbally abused by John. However, she's not any better. How does my FIL know this? The triplets tell him in a fashion that's like, Mama and Papa always yell mean things at each other. So that's enough proof for that. But I highly doubt they're going to get divorced since they want to put on a strong front for everyone despite them being known for cheaters. On a positive note, Grace has been cleared to leave the mental hospital. She's been staying with Joy, my SOL, and her husband while Grace gets back on her feet and gets used to normal life. Julia and Peter met her at my in-laws' house. It was super emotional from what I have been told by my husband who was there. Before people ask why they were allowed to see Grace, my in-laws do have John's permission to take them sometimes, like I do. 2 nights ago, I went to go see Grace and she looks better than ever. She is at a healthy weight, she was very skinny before, and looks a lot more happy than she has been in a while. The custody reevaluation has started just 3 weeks ago, so that's still ongoing so that Grace can have custody with the kids. Me and my husband are also doing well. He started to be more involved with the kids now that he is taking a semester off from medical school to be with the family more. This is the reason why he wasn't as involved as I was, because he was busy with medical school. So, not the most eventful update, but hopefully things will get better. I will update when the custody agreement has been finalized. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Mom made me live with her creepy BF who hit on me, used my stepdad's death to steal his money, and now wants a relationship just to get my inheritance. I, F27, have a lot of stories about my mom. They don't fall neatly into the entitled category, but she is currently trying to leverage my inheritance for a relationship, so it wouldn't be entirely inaccurate. I just find her insane antics to be extremely entertaining, and I hope you will as well. I'm starting with some secondhand info from my brother, since I was a baby/super young for most of this part. I have some of my own stories to share next post, but these are some new-to-me revelations that fit what I know of her character well. My parents divorced when I was a baby. It was around Christmas time, and my brother told me that Nikki went crazy and started knocking down all the decorations. He yelled at her because it was dangerous, and I was apparently in the room. He was worried about all the broken glass. Later, he said that he would wait outside for her to pick him up for visitation, but she never showed. She swears up and down that my dad tricked him into thinking it was her weekend when it wasn't, but I don't buy it. Some clear communication would have nipped it right in the bud. Plus, Nikki always seemed to try something with visitation. I didn't have the context to understand why Dad couldn't drive 2 hours to come take me trick-or-treating, but she sure let me wait for him every other year when she knew he couldn't make the trip. There were multiple times that she would plan something fun on his visitation and then ask me what I'd prefer to do, anything she could to try turning me against him. At one point, we were at a church Christmas party and my dad came to pick me up for his Christmas year. I was walking around with my friends, and he just showed up. I had absolutely no context for the situation and excitedly ran up to him, just happy to see my dad. He was taking me out the doors when Nikki spotted us and absolutely flipped out. She had me convinced that he was trying to kidnap me. Dad could have obviously handled the situation better, but she always had the superpower of getting under everyone's skin. That includes my stepdad, who admittedly had a drinking problem. When it was just me around him, though, he was a happy drunk. Nikki, however, loved to push his buttons. They'd get into huge screaming matches. They both threw things, slammed things around. She threw an ashtray at him once and dented our wall. The last straw was when he threw his steel-toed boot at the ground and it bounced and hit her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning his behavior. I am saying that when Nikki decided to take me to a battered woman's shelter, it was nothing short of emotional blackmail. We were back within the week. Later, she asked 12-year-old me if she should stay with my stepdad. I said that I thought they would make better friends, and they split up. His drinking never improved, unfortunately. There are only 2 times I remember her going crazy on me in that time period. One was when she pushed me into a dog cage. Not literally inside of it. She just shoved me over and I fell. I still have the scar on the back of my hand from where it caught the corner of the metal. I can't remember what she was on about at the time. It was always something with her. I do remember the other time. I was very young, but it always stuck in my head. We had went into a store, and when we came back to the car, I saw my lip gloss on the ground by my door. I must have dropped it when I got out, so I picked it up. Nikki went off and smacked the crap out of me. She threw me into the car, yelling that I'm not supposed to pick up trash off the ground. I was desperately trying to explain through tears that it was my lip gloss. For those of you who might be wondering, Nikki is a name that I'm using as a jab at her. She always said that she hated that name. Stay tuned for part 2. It gets way better, I promise. Funnily enough, I'm not at all resentful towards her. I had a very interesting childhood with her around. Update 1. Hello again, Reddit. A quick recap in case you didn't read part 1. I'm pretty sure my mom is bipolar, and she hates the name Nikki. She split with my dad along with my brother when I was little. When I was 12, she asked what she should do about my stepdad and they separated. She never did draw up the divorce papers. Something I didn't mention last time, but my dad had lost visit rights by now. Between Nikki calling CPS every other week and a few dumb decisions on my part, she had enough to take him back to court. She convinced me to tell them I didn't want to see my dad anymore, which obviously still makes me feel guilty. When we moved out of my stepdad's house, I started to visit there instead. He was my favorite person. I would sit and ask questions as he reloaded ammo. We'd go to the range, watch our favorite shows together, etc. When I started smoking, he found out I was rolling my own with old tobacco and he got me a pack so I didn't burn the house down. You might have mixed feelings about that, but you'll get to hear about Nikki finding out next time. Between going there and my extracurricular activities, I was barely at my actual house. Nikki was flipping between overbearing and trying to be my best friend. I never had much respect for her, which you can chalk up to her actions or the fact that I was a teenager, probably a mix of both. I just found reasons to be gone. Church youth groups, the library, wood carving class, friends' houses. When I met my boyfriend, I would go straight to his house after school and eat dinner/watch movies with his family. Nikki was gone a lot too. She had to get a job now that we were alone and went to college for a time. I can't remember what the job was, but I remember she came home late. I once spent a night walking around our small town, going to friends' houses and playing Xbox. When I got home, it was around 6 a.m. I started up towards bed when Nikki got back and I just turned around and went back downstairs. She had been known to start talking to me when I was literally asleep and wake me up, so there was no point in trying. I made a 2L of coffee and went back out. This part of my life with her wasn't too bad. Nikki picked stupid things to fight me about, like that time I called the cops when she took $20 I made because I wouldn't do the dishes. Never mind the fact that I made that money selling hydros to my brother. He'd moved into the duplex next to us at one point, and that became my hangout place. Most of the time, though, Nikki was trying to be the cool mom. She was very anti-establishment and would back me up anytime I had issues at school. This was also the point she became woke and went off the deep end about mercury and vaccines, baby stem cells in our food, and chemtrails. How the government was brainwashing the youth into being mindless zombies and how I needed to think for myself. Most of it was just cringe. One night when Nikki got smashed, I suggested she join me walking around town at night. She proceeded to invite my boyfriend by going to his house and throwing rocks at his window. He didn't come down, but we continued to the park. She was so loud and fell down every time I let go of her hand. My now husband and I still joke about it since he missed out. Before freshman year, we moved to a bigger college town. I still visited my stepdad and I found an MMA gym to hang out at after school. They didn't start class until 6 p.m., so I hung out with the computer club until then. By sheer luck, my boyfriend's family also moved there, so I was still barely home. Nikki started having issues with me being gone all the time, which was fair to be honest. She didn't care before that point, so I chalked it up to her finding more reasons to start fights. It didn't stop me from telling her that I was going to school on holiday weekends or just skipping entirely. Once, I walked across town because I forgot there were no buses running. It was one of the fireworks holidays. I called my boyfriend and it turned out his family was going to a lake out of town to go boat/jet ski. They came and picked me up so I could come. Towards the end of the trip, I started getting super paranoid that Nikki would be getting off work and expect me home from school. I wish I had just stayed and enjoyed it because she didn't really care when I got home and told her. She was never consistent with me. I eventually learned how to use that to my advantage. Really, I was not a good kid. What do you expect from a 15-year-old with no respect for their parent and barely any supervision? Nikki told my school that I wasn't allowed to date black people. So I laughed at her for asking me for life advice as my black friend hid under the laundry in my room. I was downright spiteful. Enough time had passed that I saw her custody battle with Dad for what it was. I still believed that my stepdad was better without her, but it was clear that he was devastated. She had taught me to think for myself, all right? I thought she was the trashiest person I had ever met. One New Year, She had gone out, and so I had some friends over to drink and smoke. When she got home, she had a guy with her. She proceeded to go into my room and lay in bed, absolutely smashed. I tried to get her up and out, but she wouldn't budge. She just kept telling me that she needed to lay down for a minute. I left, but the dude she brought with her went in and closed the door. I am not even going to comment on the shady consent related to that statement. My boyfriend and I got her back for sleeping with someone in my bed though. If you thought any of this was hilariously insane, just wait until the next one. It gets so much better or worse, depending on your perspective. Seriously, take all of this craziness and multiply it by 10. I know I didn't go into much about Nikki herself because I really wasn't around her much. There are plenty of details I didn't get into if anyone is interested in asking. I just didn't want this to turn into my life story, lol. Update 2. Sorry this has taken so long. I honestly kind of forgot I was doing this. Recently, I've been dedicating more energy into my writing and spotted it in my post history. Well, if there are still people who are interested, I'll get on with it. Last we left off, I had moved to the city with my mom, referred to as Nikki for ironic reasons. She had split with my stepdad, who I would visit often back in my hometown, and things were getting tense between her and me, especially after she started dating. Let's call him Richard. He was the type of guy that said things like, "You would make a better girlfriend than your mom," and offered me a ride on his motorcycle once. He left Nikki at some college bar across the river, coming back to his apartment drunk. I didn't actually know where she was since I couldn't get a hold of her, but I didn't feel comfortable alone with him. About the time Richard started to playfully push me down was when I texted my boyfriend to come and get me. When he confirmed that he was there, I made an excuse to leave the room and bolted. As soon as I got in the car, I looked at my boyfriend's very Christian mom and told her to get me the hell out of here. We were on our way back to Nikki's so I could get stuff for school in the morning when I finally heard from her. It was so embarrassing having to go pick her up. I had more problems with Richard, of course, especially after his son developed a crush on me as well. Now, Nikki herself was another issue entirely. She once came back from the bar to yell at me about not doing the laundry. I got pretty mad waiting until the load in the washer was ready to switch over before I came back to the house. By that time, she had called the police to report me as a runaway. I actually requested for them to keep me overnight, but they don't get paid enough to deal with family squabbles. They did, however, use a breathalyzer on Nikki when she came to pick me up. The knowledge that she had to leave her car there for the night was a small victory. I was so glad to have visits with my stepdad. He drank a lot with Nikki gone, but he was a happy drunk without her antagonizing him. This was also around the time that K2 was super big. Since they kept changing the formula to get around production laws, he would buy the chemicals online to mix with paint thinner and make his own. That shit was scary. I stopped dealing after an incident at school where a kid got wheeled out on a stretcher. Maybe that's what did it. Maybe the drinking. My brother and I have even wondered if Nikki would want to stop the divorce that badly. She did mention his pension not that long ago. Whatever the case, I didn't know that he wasn't sleeping the next time I got dropped off for a visit. He worked second shift, so it was typical for him to be in bed until 6. Some nights I waited until then to check on him, but I knew something was wrong before then. Can you believe that I called Nikki before the cops? For some reason, I was worried that they would find the stuff he used to make spice. They did ask a bunch of medical questions I couldn't answer, like what medications Dad might be taking. Thankfully, my grandpa had shown up by then. I helped him gather the guns to take with him, which seems sensible. I still wonder if I should have told him about the Glock and the glove compartment or just taking it for myself. After all, I never saw anything from that house again. After a few hours, my mom still wasn't there. My boyfriend's grandparents still lived close, so I went to wait there. I can't remember what her excuse was. Nikki claims that Grandpa took everything while my brother is pretty sure Richard and her pawned all the reloading and machinist tools. Death and greed. Am I right? She picked the dumbest songs for the funeral and even wanted me to sing. I couldn't bring myself to. The man in the coffin looked too gone to be my dad. I flinched as they did the 21-gun salute, and things just went downhill from there. I started talking to my actual dad again, and I was barely in school, though Nikki wanted to pretend to be responsible all of the sudden. I learned that being reported as late and/or absent to one or more classes was easy to explain away. Some days it seemed like the only way I could do anything. Others she was back to being chill. Next time I'll get into what happened once we moved in with Richard. Until then, and hopefully not too long of a wait this time. Update 3. Alright, Reddit. Grand finale for you. If you haven't seen my other posts, feel free to enjoy this shit show on its own merits. But you're missing out. The need to know is, after 2 failed marriages and a family death, I was left with no escape from my mother, Nikki, and her creepy boyfriend, Richard. At least not a responsible escape. It seemed like my mom was finally putting in an effort to parent me now that there was another person around. I wasn't allowed to run halfway across town doing God knows what anymore. And I mean it. Well, I was stuck where we'd moved into with Richard. A lot of times I was helping him and Nikki clean those houses college kids ran out. Disgusting yet cool work. I've always liked exploring empty places but never got paid for any of it. That was after school, of course. Really, I was running halfway across town to my boyfriend's house. I moved after this story, which messed up my sophomore credits. Anyways, so I'm not entirely sure how much of the school year I skipped, but I was gone often enough my friends commented when I finally showed. As a student, I got a free city bus pass. Since my BF got his school credits online, he was always home. You can put 2 and 2 together. I don't know if the school tried to contact Nikki any other way than the automated late or absent messages, but I never heard about it. Aside from the general lockdown, she was the same as always. She'd show me some conspiracy crap and be super proud I wouldn't be a mindless sheep. She'd include myself and Richard's kids in the New Year's festivities, until his son was hitting on me and puking in the toilet. She'd be pissed that I made myself dinner because her and Richard had been out all night. I even saved them some breaded pork chops and mashed potatoes. Definitely a chip on my shoulder over that one. She always had that effect on me. You can either go to bed or go outside. Would turn into her trying to drag me back inside, and getting her off of me would result in a smashed front window. Really unhinged stuff. I also dislike how she used cigarettes against me once she found out I smoked. Note for later. She actually told me to ask her when I wanted one. Then we were arguing once and I told her I could use a smoke. She smirked and told me I could have one after doing the dishes. The piss-poor timing didn't help my mood, but my literal bro slipped me a cigarette while I was fuming. I can't remember when he, his wife, and kids moved in with us, but before you start picturing Full House, Richard's kids were only over for visitation. They were still around a decent bit, enough for me to pick up on the fact that his son had a crush on me. We actually had a decent conversation once where I made it clear I wasn't interested and he accepted that. Yay, healthy communication. Richard forbade me from speaking to his kids after that. Maybe it pissed him off that neither of them could get me. He hadn't bothered me much since I literally ran from him. So, about the cigarette thing, I honestly don't know how Nikki figured it out. Maybe she finally noticed the multiple open packs she left around going missing. I do remember how she confronted me about it though. Late at night with my hand inside her purse. I've told you before I was not a good kid. Ironically, I wasn't even stealing cigarettes. I had just lost my bus pass and wanted to visit my boyfriend. I must have gotten it replaced at some point since I remember him seeing the bruises from the literal paddling Nikki gave me. She didn't take kindly to my petty effort of showing no pain, so I got a few more whacks than she originally said I would. I also lost my bedroom door privileges and the kitchen door was padlocked. Don't ask me. My best guess is that in Nikki's holier-than-thou philosophies, she had something against thievery, considering how much she mentioned it in that context. Things did get pretty serious around this time period. I got real good at stealing from convenience stores, and Richard even got annoyed when I once licked my dinner plate after being refused seconds. He also didn't appreciate the broken window incident. Maybe I drove him off because he ended up getting another place to stay most of the time. That also got Nikki out of the house a lot, so there was some peace again. It was on that kind of day while my bro and I were playing Xbox that his wife walked in and told us that Nikki was going to marry Richard. I was a pretty dramatic kid and immediately picked up my phone to call my dad to come and get me. We had been estranged after my mom convinced me to deny visitation, but I had started talking with him again. While he was on his way, My BF came over and helped my brother and I packed some things. I was just looking for an excuse to bail at that point, so everything moved pretty quickly. My brother and I joked about how long it had taken Nikki to notice I was gone. A week later, she showed up with the police to the school Dad had enrolled me in, pointing out the earlier promises of juvie if I ran away again, and that it would be preferable to living in a house with her. Did nothing, of course. They still couldn't be bothered to deal with our family drama, but CPS could. Imagine my surprise when my boyfriend gets a call that people are looking for me at school and he could get in trouble if I'm there with him. My first day back at that school and I was caught ditching. I got back there quick to find my very displeased caseworker, CW, who wanted to know where I had been. After years of seeing my parents weaponizing CPS against each other, it hadn't occurred to me to contact them. I was completely honest, of course. What possible repercussions could I face in the eyes of the law? Nikki was supposed to be responsible for me, not that she needed my help to slander her parenting skills. It only took another week to be out of that house for good. The lock was obviously removed from the kitchen now, but that didn't matter much once we ran out of food. You see, Nikki was still at Richard's the majority of the time. My brother's car had broken down, so the only way to the store was on foot. Not like it was my bro's job to feed me. We couldn't get a hold of her, and so we called my CW. 20 minutes, give or take, and Nikki storms into the house yelling about something. I don't remember what. She was mad at my brother angrily packing her things to stay with Richard before leaving again. She shoved her grandson over when he got in her way, which is when I think bro decided to leave with me. We both packed after getting the go-ahead from CW. My dad even went by the police station to confirm he was taking me. I'd like to say I had no contact with Nikki after that, but I did attempt to stay with her a few more times. There was that time she opened all the windows and doors of our apartment to heat the outside when I tried to get away from her and cool down. Or when, I also have this story on my profile, she tried to get my previous BF, now husband, arrested/killed by telling the police he was going to shoot up a diner. That one was the straw for me. Despite her holding an inheritance over my head and arguing that she deserves a relationship with me. Oh, and that my son is missing out on a relationship with her. Apologies for the warped timeline on this one. As crazy as it sounds now, this was my normal for a long time. It really just blends together, especially after so long. I'm glad to say that I was more level-headed at Dad's. I had my moments, but I was actually good in school when I wanted to be. Not sure how to end this saga. If you read all the installments, I know, congrats. You know me a bit better now, and I'd be interested to hear some of your crazy life experiences. I get bored being all normal and well-adjusted now, lol. Really though, I'm doing good. Hope you can say the same. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Parents forced me to join the gym because their daughter was getting married and they wanted me to look presentable for her wedding. 1 year later, it blew up in their faces. Growing up, I was always the fat kid. From as far back as I can remember, I was bigger than most of the other kids. In kindergarten, while my classmates were just starting to figure out what made them unique, my size had already singled me out. As I got older, the weight I carried only grew more noticeable. By the time I was in high school, I was undeniably overweight, and my shape and size became a constant reminder that I was different. College wasn't much different. While some of my peers began to discover who they were or explore new sides of themselves, I remained wrapped in that same identity. Overweight and sometimes struggling with it. Being the bigger kid wasn't easy. It opened me up to constant teasing, mockery, and hurtful comments from those who didn't know or didn't care to understand me. Growing up, I was bullied more than I like to remember. Classmates made fun of me relentlessly. Their words chipped away at me, leaving deep insecurities and self-doubt that at times felt impossible to shake. They'd call me names and make rude jokes, and I would often be the punchline. I was always singled out, like I was somehow less deserving of kindness or friendship. I was constantly left out of games, parties, and gatherings. It felt like I was always on the outside, watching everyone else experience the normal ups and downs of childhood and adolescence from a distance I couldn't cross. These years of bullying affected how I saw myself and shaped how I responded to the world. I felt out of place with others, and in turn I took refuge in books. I immersed myself in novels and stories that allowed me to escape the everyday struggles I faced. Books didn't judge me. They didn't look at me with ridicule. I became known as the nerd, and honestly, I didn't mind it nearly as much. Compared to me, my younger sister, Bonnie, was completely the opposite. Just a year younger than me, she was born with this effortless charisma that drew people to her. While I was quieter and more reserved, Bonnie thrived in social settings. She had a magnetic personality. She could walk into a room and within moments have everyone smiling, laughing, and completely enchanted by her. Bonnie didn't just make friends easily. She seemed to have an innate ability to get people on her side, almost like she was the sun that people naturally orbited around. And despite our differences, I adored her. I took my role as her big sister seriously, feeling a fierce protectiveness whenever she needed it. When she started attending the same high school as me, I was thrilled. In the beginning, being Bonnie's older sister made me feel proud, like I had a special place in her life. But as she got older, things started to change. As Bonnie settled into high school and began to form her own identity, I began to see a shift in how she viewed me. She started noticing how different we really were and how differently we were both treated. Where I was the bookish, introverted type, she was vibrant and popular. Someone who quickly found her place among the cool crowd. I watched as she became aware of my quirks and insecurities, the same things that made others see me as uncool. And once Bonnie made new friends, she started to drift away from me. She would then try to actively ignore me or avoid me at school. That hurt. It really bothered me to see my own sibling view me as someone lesser. Nevertheless, I tried my best to accept her choice, to give her the space she seemed to want, even though it stung to feel like I was losing not just my sister but my friend. But then, slowly, Bonnie didn't just ignore me. She began joining in with others who made me feel like an outcast. If Bonnie and I crossed paths in the hallways or during lunch, she and her friends would seize any opportunity to make me feel humiliated. They'd tease me in front of other students or, worse, pull stunts like trying to trip me as I walked by with my lunch tray, all for the sake of making everyone else laugh. It felt like I was losing her, not just to new friends but to the same teasing and hurtful behavior I'd endured from others for so long already. I was constantly on guard, trying to dodge not just my classmates' mockery but also the humiliation that now came from my own sister. It hurt deeply, especially because it came from someone I had always loved and looked up to. Whenever Bonnie invited her friends over, they would try to gang up on me at home. They would burst into my room without knocking, then start laughing and pointing at my body. They'd hurl words like geek and fatty at me like it was nothing. I would feel like a zoo animal, like I was their source of entertainment. Those moments when they invaded my space in my room made me feel small and isolated, like an outsider in my own home. Several times I did try to talk to my parents about it, hoping they'd understand how difficult it was for me to deal with Bonnie's behavior. But whenever I brought it up, they would dismiss my concerns. They'd smile and justify her behavior, saying that this was how siblings bonded with each other, that Bonnie was simply playing around with me. They assured me it was harmless, even going so far as to say that I should loosen up and not take everyone's taunts so seriously. They reminded me that I was older and therefore should have more patience, more resilience. So not only did I endure years of bullying from my classmates, including my own sister, but my concerns were also constantly dismissed by my parents. It made me feel alone, as though no one in my own family truly saw or understood how much it hurt. The only time I ever felt truly noticed by our parents was when it came to my grades. Academics had always come naturally to me, and I became used to securing top marks. In a way, it was the one area where I felt I was better than anyone else. It was also the only way I could make my parents proud, the one aspect of my life they seemed to genuinely care about. My parents loved to boast about my achievements to friends and relatives, painting me as the family scholar, as if my grades were somehow proof of their parenting success. But Bonnie despised the comparisons. She wasn't an academic overachiever, nor did she want to be, but our parents' constant reminders of my achievements left her feeling resentful. They held my grades up as a standard, indirectly implying that she needed to achieve the same. I could always sense her frustration and anger, and I guess that is why she did what she did to me. Sometimes Bonnie would try to sabotage my hard work just to get back at me. She'd slip into my room in the middle of the night and steal my homework, sometimes right before a major assignment was due. I'd wake up the next morning only to find my carefully completed work missing. Panic would set in, and I'd frantically search through my books, papers, and folders, growing more desperate with each passing minute. And there she'd be, watching me from the doorway with a smirk, enjoying every second of my worry. To her, it was like a small victory, a way to knock me down a peg and remind me that I wasn't untouchable. She knew exactly how important my grades were to me, how much of my self-worth I tied up in them, and she took pleasure in disrupting that part of my life. I only found out about her stealing my assignments years later, when she drunkenly confessed one night. Anyways, over time my relationship with Bonnie has softened. Though we're far from close, you can say we've matured a bit, and some of the bitterness from our younger years has faded. But the deep bond that siblings often share never fully developed between us. After college, I moved out and began building a life in a new city with an exciting job and fresh opportunities, which meant that I didn't see my family very often. As time went on, our interactions dwindled to a few calls or texts here and there. So last year, when I planned a visit home for the summer, I was genuinely looking forward to seeing everyone. It had been a while since we'd all gathered as a family, and I was eager to catch up and reconnect. But things didn't go quite as I had hoped. Our family lunch started pleasantly enough. Everyone seemed happy to see me, and for a while it felt like old times. That changed, though, when Bonnie suddenly announced her engagement. None of us had seen it coming, and at first we thought maybe she was just joking. However, it became clear she was serious. She proudly held out her hand, showing off a stunning ring, and I couldn't help but admire how beautiful it looked. I felt a genuine happiness for her, proud that she'd finally found someone she loved and who loved her in return. Almost as soon as the congratulations died down, Bonnie turned her attention to me and asked what I had been up to lately. I shared with her about my work, my life, and how fulfilling things have been for me. Before I could even finish, she cut me off. "I can't help but say this," she began, smirking. "But why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is really that great, shouldn't you have lost the weight by now?" Her words hit like a slap, dredging up old insecurities I thought I'd moved past. The room fell uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. I just shrugged and tried to awkwardly laugh off her comment, but soon my parents joined in to bash me. They started to say how I was still fat and unmarried and how they were worried that I would never have any children. I felt so humiliated hearing them talk like that. My accomplishments, the job I was proud of, the life I'd built independently in another city. None of it seemed to matter. In their eyes, my weight and my lack of a family of my own were all they could focus on. As my parents and sister continued to discuss me, their remarks cut deeper than I expected. I'd spent years of my life finally growing into myself, building confidence and independence, but in those moments, I felt like the same insecure, awkward teenager I'd once been, desperate for my family's acceptance and approval. My parents then praised Bonnie for getting engaged before me and how proud they were of her. Somehow, to them, I was the lesser child, successful perhaps, but still not quite enough. What was meant to be a joyful family reunion was quickly turning into a painful reminder of old wounds. At that moment, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Bonnie didn't stop. She continued with her probing questions. "So when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a boyfriend?" She was clearly trying to mock me in front of everyone by talking about my love life. My parents quickly lashed onto the topic, agreeing with Bonnie that it was high time for me to find someone before it's too late. They pointed out how Bonnie, being younger, was settling down before me, while I, being the older one, was still wasting away my life on my job. I tried to push back, explaining that I loved my life the way it was, that I'd found fulfillment in my career and independence. My job paid me really well, and I was really passionate about my work. And also, why did I have to find a man or have a child? I am content just the way I am. But my words didn't seem to land. My mom especially seemed dismissive, giving me a pointed look as she taunted, "What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to?" It was as though she couldn't fathom that happiness could exist outside of marriage or family. Sitting there, I felt the familiar feeling of being misunderstood, of my life choices being undervalued. This was my family, the people who were supposed to know me best, yet they seemed so focused on a version of happiness that wasn't my own. I had come home looking for connection and warmth, but what I found instead was judgment and taunts. Bonnie then started to say how she expected me to at least have a +1 by the time her wedding rolled around. She told me that she didn't want people thinking her sister was some old, miserable woman all alone while she was getting married. The comment stung. I just shook my head and told her that I would try. This is when my parents told me, matter-of-factly, that since Bonnie's wedding was almost a year away, even if I couldn't manage to find a partner, I could at least try to lose weight and look more presentable for her wedding. They told me that maybe after I lost weight, it would be easier for me to attract a man. Bonnie agreed with my parents and told me that she wanted me to lose a few pounds at least. I sat there, stunned and ashamed, feeling an ache I hadn't felt in years. How could my family talk to me this way? Did I really deserve their cruel words just because I was overweight? Was I not supposed to have any feelings just because I was fat? I mean, I was a normal human being like them. I functioned normally as everyone else. I never saw my weight as a hindrance, so why were they? I even dated men who liked me just the way I was, yet my parents and Bonnie were making it seem that somehow my weight prevented me from finding love or from men approaching me when it wasn't even true. I wanted to defend myself, to tell them how hurtful their words were, but I felt frozen, unable to find the right words. Their words transported me back to high school, to the painful days when my weight made me a target. I hated how casually my family could bring up my biggest insecurities and not even care about how they made me feel. So I sat there, holding in my pain, and let the conversation eventually drift into something else. After that visit to my family, when I came back home, I threw myself into losing weight with a level of determination I hadn't known I had. It started as a way to prove something to my family, but over time, it became more personal. I joined a gym, committed to a strict diet, and even hired a personal trainer. My trainer has been a lifesaver. Having gone through her own transformation from being overweight to reaching a healthy weight, she knew precisely how to guide me through a journey that was customized just for me. She designed a regimen tailored to my goals and supported me every step of the way, pushing me while also reminding me to give myself grace whenever I faltered. This time, it all seemed to click. I began to lose weight steadily, and as the pounds came off, I felt lighter, not just physically but emotionally too. For the first time in my life, I started to feel and look different. My confidence shot up immediately. I used to think that losing weight wouldn't have that big of an impact, but it truly has. People view me differently now. Strangers are kinder, more attentive. Friends and colleagues see me with a new respect, and I can't deny that this feels like a kind of validation I'd never experienced before. It's as if I've suddenly become visible in a way I hadn't been. With my new body came a new sense of style. I changed my entire wardrobe, filling it with clothes I'd only dreamed of wearing. I even went for a complete hair makeover, trying a style that's bold and modern, one I would have been too shy to attempt in the past. Maybe it sounds extravagant, but I've never felt this good. I look in the mirror now and I hardly recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself I never knew could exist. I'm proud of how far I've come, not just because of the weight loss but because of the confidence and self-assurance that's come with it. Anyways, since Bonnie's wedding is now 2 weeks away, my family has asked me to fly down and join them for lunch next week so they can discuss some final plans for her wedding. However, I don't feel like going home. I don't want my family to taunt me again and make me feel small, especially after I've finally started feeling good about myself for the first time in a long while. I don't even want to attend Bonnie's wedding anymore after the way she and my parents have treated me. But I know that if I don't go, they'll be really upset and give me a long lecture about how family is family and no matter how hurt I feel, I should be there for Bonnie's big day. So I just want to know, Aita, if I don't attend my sister's wedding? Update 1. Wow, I am overwhelmed by everybody's reaction. Some of your suggestions are honestly hilarious. I can't believe you're actually encouraging me to show up and mess with my sister now that I've lost all this weight. Growing up as the fat kid really messed with my self-esteem, especially when it came to how I saw myself. I struggled with self-doubt for a long time, always feeling like I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to others. But reading all your comments has been a game changer. It's like you've helped me see myself in a whole new way, and I'm finally starting to feel more confident than I ever have. In fact, I'm now seriously thinking about showing up to my family's lunch and surprising everyone. They haven't seen me in so long, and since I'm not on social media, they have no idea about the weight I've lost. It will be interesting to see how they react. Update 2. Okay, Reddit. Y'all are not ready for this update. Grab your popcorn because this is about to get good. I decided to fly down to attend my family's lunch, as I had updated before. I thought when they saw me, they would be proud of the transformation I'd undergone, since, after all, they had been the ones to actually push me toward it in the first place. Surely they'd be thrilled to see the positive changes in me and finally acknowledge the hard work I'd put in. The moment I stepped inside my parents' home, their jaws quite literally dropped. They stared at me, stunned, almost as if they couldn't quite believe I was the same person. After a moment, they stammered, asking if it was really me. I gave them a warm hug, feeling pleased by their reaction. They complimented my appearance repeatedly, telling me how lovely I looked and how they can't believe it's really me. However, when Bonnie arrived, things took a different turn. She didn't even notice me at first, ignoring me as if I were invisible, much like she'd done so many times in the past. But when I stood up to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes widening in surprise. She let out a strange, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pressing her fingers against my stomach, wide-eyed, as though she needed proof that I had really lost all that weight. My parents laughed at her reaction and told her how they couldn't believe it either at first. As we settled into lunch, the conversation revolved around my transformation. Bonnie and my parents peppered me with questions about how I'd managed it, marveling repeatedly at how different I looked. There was a sense of disbelief in their voices, as if they'd never truly thought I could look any other way. Bonnie especially kept repeating how she never expected me to change so drastically after losing weight. She remarked, "When I first asked you to lose weight, I never expected you to look this pretty. I didn't even know you had that jawline and those ankles beneath all that fat." I paused, trying to keep my composure, and gave her a smile before reminding her, "Bonnie, I've always been pretty. Losing weight just enhanced my features." However, Bonnie argued that it wasn't just that and there was something really different about me. She then had the nerve to ask, "Did you have some surgeries done on yourself? Because there's no way you look this good by yourself." I could feel my blood start to boil. The audacity to think I needed surgeries to look good when in fact I had worked so hard to look the way I did. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Wow, Bonnie, it's amazing that you think that little of me. No surgery. Just a lot of hard work and self-love. Something you might want to try sometime." Bonnie's face shifted from surprise to annoyance, but I didn't care. It felt good to finally speak up and to put her in her place. Before she could respond, my parents jumped in, stepping in to smooth things over in their own way. "You shouldn't be offended," my mom said. "The three of us have just never seen you look this way before. Honestly, you look even more beautiful now than Bonnie does. And she's the one getting married." Bonnie looked even more furious after Mom's comment. I just simply ignored her and focused on my lunch, letting my sister seethe in her anger. Then my mom chimed in, "You know, I was thinking maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I think you'd look even better with your natural shade. This blonde look makes you stand out too much. Maybe you should just go back to your old look." Bonnie and my dad immediately agreed with her. My dad supported my mom, adding that Bonnie was always the blonde daughter of the family and I was the brunette, so it would be a good idea for me to go back to my original hair color, as it might make me look more like myself. Hearing their words, I was taken aback. I suddenly started to feel like the three of them were ganging up on me and trying to put me down. My hairstylist had been the one who changed my hair color to blonde because it suited my skin tone and face better. It had nothing to do with trying to stand out or overshadow my sister. I could understand why Bonnie was jealous of me as I look good now, but I couldn't understand why my parents seemed so unhappy with me. It's like they wanted to change me back to who I was when they were the ones who wanted me to look more presentable for their darling daughter's upcoming wedding in the first place. But now that I did, They simply couldn't accept the person I had become, and instead of celebrating my growth, they were finding reasons to demean me. I finally asked my parents, "What's your problem? Why can't I be a blonde also? Does my sister own that color or something?" I paused, feeling frustrated. "No, she doesn't. I can be blonde or brunette. It's my choice. Why does it even matter to you so much?" I couldn't understand why they were so fixated on me going back to the way I used to be, as if my appearance needed to fit into who I was before. Before my mom scoffed at me and argued that I was knowingly trying to sabotage Bonnie's upcoming wedding by trying to stand out with my appearance. Bonnie chimed in as well, saying that with my weight loss I was already going to stand out, so did I really need to take her hair color too? My dad, as usual, sided with them, telling me I was being difficult for no reason, and that as Bonnie's sister, I should be more understanding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't about stealing anything. It was about me having the freedom to choose what made me feel good. But instead of supporting that, they were all focused on how it might make Bonnie uncomfortable. "You know what? I'm done with this," I said, the words almost burning as they left my mouth. "The three of you are so caught up in your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. The truth is, I've always been amazing just the way I am, but none of you ever saw it. Now, after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it's never enough." I paused for a moment, letting the weight of my words sink in. They just stared at me, but it didn't matter. I was done holding back. "Since you all have so much to say about me, I think it's time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you love to give me." I turned to my mom first, feeling the words rise up inside me like a flood. "Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes and your lips. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth. And honestly, it's just disgusting to me." "Dad," I began, my tone sharp, "you're bald. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair?" I saw his face tighten, but I wasn't done yet. Lastly, I turned to Bonnie, "And you don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling, but now with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours." Bonnie's face turned bright red in embarrassment, and she looked like she was about to burst out crying. I then lifted my glass, finished my drink in one go, and gave them a smirk before walking out, leaving them all shocked and speechless. I said what I had to say. I couldn't believe these words had actually left my mouth, but I didn't regret it one bit. After years of being the subject of their criticism, they deserved to be humiliated like that. After that lunch, I flew straight back home. I did not want to stay behind and attend Bonnie's wedding. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with voicemails and messages from my parents and Bonnie. They've been calling me rude and foul-mouthed for the way I talked to them and just left. Mom is even insisting that I should fly down and attend Bonnie's wedding, saying it won't look good to her in-laws if I'm not there. Update 3. Hey, so I ended up skipping Bonnie's wedding, thanks to all of your ideas. Instead of going back home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu staycation at a 5-star resort. It was honestly one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy. No drama, no pressure, just pure relaxation. I pampered myself with a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and even explored some new spots in the city I've been wanting to check out. I've also gone ahead and blocked my family so they won't be able to contact me again. I'm tired of being bullied by them and just want to stay away from all the toxicity and drama. Right now, I'm focused on taking care of myself. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Crazy. My SIL has an affair with my high school ex, just so that she can spite me, and brings him as her +1 at my wedding. But before I could even react, karma served itself. So this all went down 2 weeks ago, and I still can't wrap my head around it. I, 29F, recently married my amazing husband, 30M. He's the love of my life and the first man I ever truly trusted after a horrible experience with my ex. But I'll get to that later. Let me just get this out of the way. My husband's sister, 34F, has never liked me. I don't know what her issue is, but from day one, she's had this attitude toward me. I honestly think that she's the queen of backhanded compliments. She'd love to say things like, I look surprisingly decent for someone who didn't grow up in a wealthy family, or that I should be grateful that I'm decently smart because my looks wouldn't have gotten me anywhere. So yeah, she definitely has never liked me. She's also constantly stirring up drama, whether it's gossiping about me to other family members or throwing little digs at me whenever she gets the chance. My husband always stood up for me, but after a while, I just stopped reacting to her nonsense. I didn't want to create a bigger wedge between them because I believed that my husband's relationship with his family shouldn't have to change because of me. I wasn't ever upset by her comments, mostly just appalled at her audacity. I was also secure enough in my relationship with my husband that her comments never made me feel insecure about him. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried to ignore her comments, things only got worse after my husband and I got engaged. I decided to extend an olive branch and allowed her to be a part of the wedding planning because I hoped that she would see that I was a nice person and maybe it would lead to a change in her attitude towards me. Of course, that was stupid of me because she was a nightmare during the wedding planning. She'd criticize my choices, question everything, and throw tantrums when she didn't get her way. When I picked my best friend as my maid of honor, she had a meltdown about how I was excluding family. It got so bad that I finally asked her to back off entirely until the wedding day. My husband fully supported me, but even he couldn't believe how far she was pushing things. I thought this would be the end of her meddling, but I should have known better. On the day of our wedding, she showed up late, which honestly didn't surprise me, and I was kind of glad about it because I knew that she'd bring drama with her the second she showed up. I was glad that I had some time of fun before she ruined everything, and I was not wrong about that hunch. She chose to bring my high school ex as her +1 to my wedding. For some more context, this guy was my first ever boyfriend, and he was very abusive behind closed doors. The only reason the relationship ended was because I caught him cheating on me. When I confronted him about it, he humiliated me publicly and made me question my worth. Took me years to rebuild my confidence after him. I've only dated one person since, and that's my husband. My husband is everything my ex wasn't: kind, loyal, and supportive. But seeing my ex at my wedding felt like a punch in the gut. I managed to pull my SIL aside during the reception and I asked what she was thinking when she chose to bring my ex-boyfriend to my wedding. She brushed it off and acted like it wasn't a big deal. She then smugly told me that I shouldn't have a problem with my ex because I should be over it by now. It was clear she brought him just to spite me. My husband wanted to kick them both out right then and there, but I asked him not to. I didn't want to create more drama on what was supposed to be our special day. I decided to ignore her and try to focus on enjoying myself, even though I was seething inside. But karma had other plans. An hour into the reception, her long-term boyfriend showed up. My husband had invited him as a surprise for her. They've been in a long-distance relationship for the past 2 years because of his job. My husband thought it would be sweet to have him there, since she hadn't seen him in months. What we didn't know was that their relationship was on its last legs, and for good reason. When he walked in and saw her with my ex, he lost it. He grabbed the microphone and called everyone's attention. He decided that it was time to expose my SIL for the horrible person she was right then and there in front of everyone. He told everyone that she'd been cheating on him for months. He said he'd noticed her pulling away recently and decided to log into her social media accounts to see what was going on. That's when he found out she'd been texting multiple guys, including my ex. He called her a liar and a manipulator and said she and my ex deserved each other. The room went dead silent. My SIL started crying and trying to explain, but her boyfriend wasn't having any of it. He stormed out after dropping the mic, literally. As if that wasn't enough, my ex added fuel to the fire by loudly saying he had no idea that my SIL was in a relationship. All of our guests were whispering and staring at my SIL, and she was completely humiliated. My husband and I had enough at that point. We got the venue staff to escort her and my ex out of the wedding. The rest of the night was a bit awkward, but we managed to salvage it and still have a good time. The guests couldn't stop talking about the drama, though. It was like a real-life soap opera. Since then, My SAL has been blowing up my phone and begging me to clear her name, or at least give her the chance to do it herself. She claims that she didn't know that her boyfriend was coming, and she also thinks that I set her up by inviting him. She also insists that she didn't mean to ruin my wedding and that I've taken things too far by ignoring her. I'm still furious with her, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little bad. She got humiliated in front of everyone, and while she brought it on herself, it was a lot to witness. Still, she brought my ex to my wedding out of pure spite. She knew how much he hurt me and didn't care. Now, some family members think I should talk to her and hear her out, but I don't know. ITA for refusing to help her after what she did? Update 1. First off, wow. I didn't expect my post to blow up like it did. Thank you for all the comments, advice, and support. Some of you had great questions, and a lot has happened since my original post, so here's the update you've all been waiting for. Let me start with a few questions people kept asking in the comments. 1. Did your husband actually do anything about his sister after the wedding? Yes, he did. My husband is done with her. He told his sister that she wasn't welcome in our lives anymore unless she took real accountability for her actions and made a sincere apology. Not just to me, but to everyone she dragged into her mess. She tried to argue that I was the one being unreasonable, and she even accused me of stealing her brother. Like, what does that even mean? She even tried to say that if I hadn't opened my mouth about my ex-boyfriend in front of her, she'd never have even known about him. Yeah, my husband and I were shocked by her audacity. My husband told her he wasn't going to entertain her drama anymore. As far as he's concerned, their relationship is over until she gets her act together. 2. What's the deal with her parents? Why haven't they stepped in? Oh, they've stepped in all right, but not in the way she wanted. After hearing everything she pulled, my husband's parents are furious with her. They told her that she embarrassed the entire family, and they have temporarily cut her off financially. Apparently, she's been leaning on them for money for years because she's been too busy to hold down a stable job. Right now, she's couch surfing with friends because they refuse to let her move back in. Obviously, my SAL is losing her mind. She's been spamming my husband's and my phones with texts and voicemails about how we've ruined her life, but we've mostly been ignoring it. 3. Why didn't you and your husband kick her out earlier? Trust me, I wanted to, but I didn't want to cause more drama at my wedding than what she'd already stirred up. A lot of the people who attended the wedding, especially people on my side, knew who my ex-boyfriend was and the way he treated me, so my SIL was already getting looks from them for bringing him in. In fact, my maid of honor, my best friend, even asked me if I wanted her to kick my SIL and her +1 out, but I told her no. I knew that people were already talking about the fact that my ex-boyfriend was at the wedding, and I didn't want to make things worse by having him thrown out. I also got a lot of questions about how my husband was even comfortable with the fact that the only other man I dated was present at our wedding, and let me tell you, he was not. He hated the fact that my scumbag of an ex was there, but he had the same thought process as me. He didn't want to add more fuel to the gossip fire, so he shut his mouth. Looking back, though, I'm glad we didn't make a bigger scene, especially since karma did the job for us. Now on to the juicy update. A few days after the wedding, my husband got a message from his sister's boyfriend. He apologized for causing a scene. He felt terrible about how everything went down, but said he couldn't sit quietly after seeing her with my ex. My husband told him that we didn't blame him for what he did. If anything, we were grateful that he exposed her for who she really is. During that conversation, her boyfriend dropped even more bombs about her. He said he'd been suspicious for months because she had been pulling away from him. They had been in a long-distance relationship for the last 2 years, and for the past 4 months, her behavior changed completely. She stopped answering his calls regularly, got cagey about their plans, and made excuses to avoid seeing him whenever he suggested coming down to meet her. That's when he decided to do some digging. He managed to access her social media accounts, and what he found was wild. She wasn't just messaging my ex. She was talking to multiple men. It's not clear if she was dating all of them, but she was definitely entertaining them behind his back. He also learned that she reconnected with my ex over a year ago and had been seeing him secretly ever since. I don't think that she wanted everyone to know that she was seeing him when she brought him to our wedding. She only wanted to make me uncomfortable and ruin my day, but her boyfriend came in and exposed her for who she really was. Here's where things get even worse for her. Her boyfriend revealed that she had been using his money to fund her lifestyle. She lied to him about needing financial support for bills and other expenses, but instead she was spending it on herself and apparently also used it to go on dates with other men. He's now taking legal action to get back some of the money she took without his consent. I don't know all the details, but he said he's spoken to a lawyer and is building a solid case against her. As for my ex, he's been lurking on social media, and he even tried to contact me. I blocked him immediately, but just knowing that he's out there trying to stir the pot is unnerving. My SIL's boyfriend also told us that my ex-boyfriend had reached out to him. He was adamant about not knowing that my SIL was in a relationship already and told my SIL's boyfriend that she had been the one to make a move on my ex first. My ex said that he felt blindsided by the whole situation. Whether that's true or not, I honestly don't care. He's not my problem anymore. Speaking of problems, my SIL's behavior has gone completely off the rails. She's been texting and calling me nonstop and begging me to help clear her name. She's claiming that we set her up by inviting her boyfriend, which is ridiculous. My husband had invited him as a surprise because he thought they were in a happy, committed relationship. He wanted to do something nice for her because he knew that she was the kind of person to also throw a bit of a fit later on because she felt too lonely at the wedding. If I'm being completely honest, my husband only invited her boyfriend so we could have a good wedding and post-wedding without my SIL in our ears complaining about how she was all alone. She's also been spinning all kinds of stories to mutual friends and telling them that I plotted to ruin her life and that her actions were blown out of proportion. Her family isn't having any of it, though. They're as fed up with her as I am. My husband's mom told us that my SIL recently caused drama at a family gathering by picking a fight with their youngest sibling. Apparently, she accused them of taking sides against her and demanded that they convince my husband to forgive her. When that didn't work, she stormed out and hasn't been in touch with them since. This isn't even the first time she's crossed the line with her family. A few months ago, she borrowed money from her parents claiming it was for car repairs, but they later found out she spent it on a luxury spa day. She also had a falling out with a cousin after spreading rumors about their relationship. It's like she thrives on chaos and drama, and honestly, I'm over it. I'm glad that all the chaos she's caused has finally come back to her and that she finally has gotten a taste of her own medicine. So where do things stand now? My husband and I are focusing on our marriage and moving forward. His sister is not a part of our lives right now, and we're both fine with that. Her ex-boyfriend has been a class act throughout this whole mess, and we wish him the best. I'm still angry about what she did, but I also feel a weird sense of relief knowing she can't hurt us anymore. Do I feel bad for her? Honestly, not really. She brought this on herself, and it's not my job to fix the mess she created. That said, I do wonder sometimes if I should at least hear her out, even if just to get closure about how and why she chose to bring my ex to the wedding. But for now, I think I'll stick with blocking her and focusing on the people who actually bring positivity into my life. Thanks again for all your support. You've helped me feel less alone in this mess, and I really appreciate it. I'll update you again if anything major happens, but for now, I'm happy to leave the drama behind. Update 2. Hey, it's me again. Things have gotten even crazier, so here's another update. Buckle up because this one is a lot. A few days after my last post, my husband's sister showed up at our house. She didn't call or text ahead, just decided to show up out of the blue. My husband wasn't home at the time, so it was just me. When I opened the door, there she was, crying, mascara running, the whole dramatic act. She begged me to let her explain. She said that she didn't really mean to hurt me by bringing my ex to the wedding. She claimed she only did it because she felt like I was taking her brother away from her. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. How is that even a valid excuse for what she did? I mean, did she not realize that in ruining my day, she was also ruining her brother's? If she cared so much for her brother, she would never have actually done something so horrific. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses and asked her to leave. That's when things took a turn. She snapped and started yelling at me. She said that I had ruined her life. She blamed me for her now ex-boyfriend suing her for thousands of dollars that she apparently doesn't have. She also accused me of poisoning her brother against her, and said it was all my fault that her family was cutting her off financially. I tried to stay calm, but she was completely unhinged. I told her she needed to leave or I'd call the police. She wouldn't leave right away, though. She kept ranting and screaming on my front porch, saying that I'd regret doing this to her. Eventually, I stood my ground and repeated that I'd call the police if she didn't leave immediately. After some more yelling, she finally stormed off, but not before shouting something about how I'd regret it once again. It was honestly scary. The next day, I found out she had taken her meltdown to Facebook. She posted this long rant where she basically accused me of being a manipulative gold digger who turned her brother against his family. She even claimed I was obsessed with my ex and had invited him to the wedding myself. I mean, the audacity. That part especially made me laugh because everyone who was there knows how ridiculous that is. Thankfully, most of our friends and family weren't buying her nonsense. People were shutting her down in the comments, calling her out for her lies. A few even messaged me privately to let me know they had my back. My husband and I decided not to engage publicly. We figured it was best to let her dig her own grave and not give her the attention she clearly wanted. But I can't lie, it hurt reading all those lies about me. Even though I knew they weren't true, it still stung. I don't like drama, and the last thing I want is for people to think I'm some kind of manipulative villain. It's frustrating that she can't just own up to her mistakes and move on. Meanwhile, her ex-boyfriend has been keeping us updated on his legal battle with her. He's suing her for a lot of money. Apparently, he had given her access to his bank account because she was struggling and he wanted to help her out. He had only given her that access so she could use it whenever she really needed extra funds. But then after reviewing his statements, he discovered that she had been funneling his money into a secret account and using it to fund extravagant trips with my ex. And according to my ex, these trips have always been suggested by my SIL, and she was adamant about spoiling him. Literally, how messed up is that? She's now in some serious financial trouble. She's been begging him to drop the case, but he's standing his ground, and honestly, I don't blame him one bit. Hearing about her double life has been eye-opening. I knew she was manipulative, but I didn't realize just how far she would go to get what she wanted. She's been lying to everyone, not just me, and now it's all catching up to her. Right now, on the one hand, I feel relieved knowing that people are starting to see her for who she really is. On the other hand, it's exhausting dealing with the fallout of her actions. I don't want this to consume my life, but she keeps dragging me back into her mess. For now, my husband and I are staying focused on each other and trying to move past all the drama. It's clear that his sister has no intention of taking responsibility for what she's done, so we've decided to cut her out of our lives completely. We've blocked her on everything, and if she shows up at our house again, we won't hesitate to get authorities involved. As for her ex-boyfriend, we're supporting him however we can. He didn't deserve to be dragged into her mess, and we hope he gets some closure from his case against her. That's all for now. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens, but honestly, I'm hoping this is the last we hear of her for a while. Thanks again for all the support. You've been amazing throughout this whole nightmare. Update 3. Hey, it's been a while, about 7 months since my last update, and things have only gotten more intense. I'm here to finally wrap up the saga of my sister-in-law's meltdown. Honestly, I never thought I'd be typing another update, but I feel like I owe it to you all since you've been so supportive, and I've gotten a few messages from people asking for an update. So here it is. First things first, my SIL's life has become a complete nightmare. It's like everything she did to everyone else has come back to her tenfold. Last I heard, she's lost just about everything. Just to recap, my ex-boyfriend dumped her right after the wedding fiasco, which is no surprise considering how much she'd lied to him, and that only made things worse. She's now completely alone and, as expected, blaming everyone else for her problems. She's made some truly bad choices and now she's paying the price for them. As for the lawsuit, it's still ongoing, but things have taken a turn for the worse for her. Her ex-boyfriend is moving forward with his case and it's not looking good for her. She's in serious trouble. Other than taking money from his account and using it to spoil another man, my SIL also had even been running up expenses on credit cards in his name. He's suing her for not only the money she owes but also for the emotional distress she caused him. While the case isn't fully resolved yet, it's clear she'll be facing consequences for her actions. She might even end up having to declare bankruptcy, and there's a chance she'll be facing criminal charges. From what I've heard, her ex-boyfriend's lawyer is confident they'll win the case, and it's only a matter of time before my SIL has to pay up. There's no getting around it. She dug herself into a hole and now she's stuck with the consequences. What's even more frustrating is how my SIL is still trying to frame me for ruining her life. After everything she's done, she's somehow still pointing the finger at me. She's told anyone who will listen that I'm the one who destroyed her relationship and ruined her future. It's beyond insane. She hasn't once acknowledged that she brought this all on herself. I know she's trying to manipulate the narrative and is probably trying to make herself feel better about the mess that she's in. But the thing is, people see right through it now. I've gotten a few messages from friends and family telling me that they've heard her lies and don't believe a word she's saying. A lot of them even tried to get me to retaliate or say something, but I'm honestly so over it. She tried to ruin my wedding in the worst way possible, and I didn't react then, so I'm not going to give her the satisfaction of a reaction from me now. Not to mention, everyone knows she's lying and trying to get attention, so there's really no need for me to say anything at all. But even though most people are over her drama, she's still trying to drag more family into it. She tried to get Jake's parents to take her in again, but when they refused, she accused them of abandoning her and choosing Jake over her. They're completely done with her now too. They kicked her out when she showed up at their house begging for money, and they've made it clear to her that they won't support her anymore unless she owns up to what she's done and agrees to get her life together for good. If I'm being really honest, it's hard not to feel some level of sympathy for someone who's clearly spiraling. But at the end of the day, my SIL made her choices. She was given so many chances to make things right, but instead, she chose to lie, manipulate, and blame everyone but herself. I'm sure I'll get more questions, but to sum it all up, my husband and I have cut her off for good, and we're better off for it. The only way we've got any kind of information is through other people telling us about it, but we've pretty much decided to cut that off too. Jake and I have been through enough together to know that we're stronger when we focus on ourselves and not on toxic people. I'm sure my SIL will continue to spiral, but that's her journey now, not ours. We've moved on and we're not looking back. Thanks again for all the support. You've helped me through some tough times and I'm glad I could share this journey with you. This is the final update, and honestly, I'm hoping that's the end of this chapter. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My best friend's fiancé made weird comments and tried to touch me during my visit. When I told her, she revealed she'd been in love with me since high school, and they both planned to make something happen. I am at a loss for how to go about handling this situation in an appropriate manner. Any kind of advice would be greatly appreciated at this point. To make this easier, let's call my friend Kate and her fiancé John. I met Kate during my sophomore year of high school through mutual acquaintances. We became very close, so naturally, I was devastated when she moved several states away after graduating. Despite the distance, we kept contact and remained as good of friends as ever. About 2 years ago, my family happened to take a vacation in very close proximity to her new home, so we excitedly planned to meet. Felt amazing to see her again. We both dashed out of our cars and hugged and squealed like stereotypical best friends. We hung out all evening and caught up with one another in person. Also, I had the chance to finally meet her fiancé of 1 year. I had heard only great things about this guy, and he seemed very pleasant. Shortly after returning home, I received a text message from an unknown number, John. He thanked me for stopping by to see Kate, saying that it really lifted her spirits and he hadn't seen her so happy in a long time. Understanding the personal issues Kate had been struggling with lately, I told him I was glad to have helped. I assumed Kate had given him my number and didn't think much else about it. John would text me here and there about little insignificant things. He'd mention a movie him and Kate were about to see and ask my opinion, or suggest a fun new video game they'd bought. I would answer his questions or respond to suggestions but never carry on a conversation beyond the original topic. John would attempt to keep me talking, but I always dropped off due in part to me not being very big on texting. More than a year after seeing Kate, I received a very late-night text from John saying, I miss you. Assuming he had sent this to me by mistake, I ignored it. Fast forward to a month or so ago, I took a weekend trip to visit Kate. We had been planning this get-together for a while, and I was super excited to spend some much-needed girl time with her. I had been anticipating a chill weekend with my best friend, but nothing could have prepared me for the Twilight Zone shit I was about to walk into. Kate and John picked me up from the airport, and I was made to feel uncomfortable almost immediately. John had extended his arms for a hug upon my arrival, which I thought nothing of and accepted. He held me a bit too tightly and a bit too long, and then commented on how hot I looked. Not nice or even pretty, but hot. I sort of just laughed awkwardly and looked toward Kate, who seemed to not be paying attention at the moment. I pushed this aside, chalking it up to a social fluke on his part, and enjoyed the rest of my day with him. The daylight hours went smoothly, save for John suggesting several times that we all get drunk that evening. Not being a drinker, I declined, only to have him get a little pushy with it. I politely reaffirmed my opinion, and he eventually dropped it. After returning to their home, the three of us hung out in the family room and watched a bit of television. We all began talking and somehow came to the topic of a pregnancy scare Kate had told me about a few months prior. John proceeded to tell me how stupid Kate was for the way she worried over a possible pregnancy. He said that he had told her several times that it was hardly possible, and to stop being such a stupid fucking spaz over it. He went on to tell me that it was her own fault for forgetting her birth control, and that it was bullshit for her to then expect him to use a condom. I was entirely thrown off at the way he had raised his voice and talked so rudely about my friend. I defended her, saying that it was an entirely legitimate thing to worry over and that if she prefers that he wear a condom in order to be safe, that he should respect her wishes. He only laughed at me, and Kate stayed totally silent during the entire interaction. John then asked if I wanted to sleep in bed with him and Kate rather than in the guest room, which I found totally strange. I declined the offer and went to bed. The following morning, Kate and I had made plans to go shopping. She mentioned John wouldn't be with us because he had to work, which I was very grateful for. Before leaving the house, however, John stopped me and said, "You're a heavy sleeper." Confused, I gave a weird look and asked what he meant. He went on to say, "You're a heavy sleeper. You don't even wake up when people touch you." Now, normally I would have interpreted this as someone possibly trying to rouse me earlier by tapping my shoulder or something along those lines. But the way in which John was smirking at me and the inflection and emphasis he had put on the word touch caused me to think otherwise. I asked John what the fuck he was talking about, and he only laughed, saying it was nothing. Now, I happen to take some relatively strong sleeping pills, which Kate is aware of. These knock me out pretty hard, but I believe I would have woken up given the chance that someone entered the room or touched me inappropriately. So, I highly doubt anything actually happened, but the possibility of him groping me in my sleep makes me sick. Actually, the fact that he would say that to me just to cause anxiety makes me sick. I went on to try and enjoy my outing with Kate, which unfortunately didn't offer much solace. While stopped at a red light, Kate and I sat quietly as a group of pedestrians crossed the street. Kate made a comment on how beautiful one particular girl in the crowd happened to be. I agreed that she was a very pretty woman, only for Kate to suddenly spout out, "I'm not attracted to men." She had said this as if the words had been dying to leave her lips for years. I was pretty dumbfounded and caught off guard by the sudden confession, as I had never entertained the idea of Kate being a lesbian. She had mentioned once a short fling she shared with a girl in middle school, but claimed it to have been nothing more than a cry for attention. We joked about this here and there, but I never thought she could have been lying. I didn't answer due to lacking a decent response, so she followed up by blatantly telling me that she is a lesbian and that she doesn't love John. I asked Kate why on earth she would marry him then, and she only said, "Because I think it's what I should do." I tried to talk to her more about this, but she then told me she would prefer the subject be dropped. At this point, I was counting down the hours to my flight home the next morning. And after hearing John would be joining us for dinner, I was even more eager to get away. After meeting up with him, the three of us began walking into the restaurant, only for me to catch John's hand veering dangerously close to my butt. I shifted away, and he moved very quickly and attempted to grab it. Luckily, I managed to jump to the side, leaving him with only his fingertips brushing my skirt. I told him to watch his fucking hands, and he just laughed again and made some kind of comment on my appearance and the fact that he couldn't help it. Dinner couldn't have gone by slower. I sat there, hardly saying a word and wondering if I should just try and get a hotel room for the evening. However, my stupid self decided that I could make it one more night and save the cash. I told Kate that I was very tired the moment we got back to her place, but she insisted that I watch our favorite movie together before I have to go home. Unable to say no, the two of us head up to her room. Her roommate's bedroom is on the bottom floor next to the family room, so the television would have woken them up. About an hour into the movie, John comes in and asks to watch with us. Kate tells him, of course. Hardly 10 minutes pass before he's attempting to convince Kate and I to kiss. I say no repeatedly and just keep looking at the screen. Kate isn't saying a damn word about it, and John actually starts pleading with us to just kiss really quick. So I tell him to shut up and that he's ruining the movie. A couple more minutes of silence passed by until John outright asks if I'd like to sleep with him. The way that he went about asking was as if he had deluded himself into thinking he was fucking irresistible to me. I told him no and pointed out the fact that Kate was sitting right next to me. I looked at her, expecting some kind of response, but it was obvious that she totally spaced out at this point. John informed me that Kate was fine with sharing him. He continued to badger me and insisted that I show him some appreciation for allowing me to stay in his home. I looked at Kate and asked her, "How the fuck are you okay with this?" She looked as if she was unable to hear me, staring straight ahead with dull eyes. I got up to leave, only for John to attempt to block the door. Mind you, I'm a 5 feet tall, 100 pounds girl being physically blocked by a very large man. I tell John firmly to move, only for him to once again say that I owe him. I took my chances and shouldered my way past him. Luckily, he didn't do much but attempt to grab me as I exited the room. I gathered my things quickly and got the hotel room. Kate never even acknowledged what happened. I think she may be suffering from either John's abuse or some kind of mental disorder, which makes me feel bad for being angry with her, but I'm very angry that she sat by and did nothing while her fiancé was so aggressive with me. Kate is aware that I was sexually assaulted in the recent past and therefore am sensitive to such pushy advances. I talk to Kate very sparsely, and she doesn't seem to understand why. By coincidence, I happen to have accepted a role in an internship program close to the city she lives in. Within a month, I will be living in very close proximity to both her and John, and I need to figure out what to do. I want to help my friend. I'm afraid that she is experiencing abuse, living a lie by pretending to be heterosexual, and may possibly be suffering from some kind of mental illness. I have never been in a situation like this, and I'm at a complete loss. I don't want to see Kate after I move because that, in turn, means I'll see John. Any advice as to how I can help her and try to diffuse this situation would be massively helpful. Edit 1. Oh my gosh. I just woke up and I had no expectations of this post blowing up so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the advice and support. Seriously, you guys have no idea how much it means to me. I've decided to talk to Kate. I'm nervous as hell because I have no clue how she'll react, but I need to reach out to her. She has been there for me during trying times in my life. I want to be there for her. I know for a fact that John works tonight, and Kate will accompany him sometimes and just sort of sit there and be idle all evening. I should have recognized this as weird earlier, but I don't know if she's going tonight. I asked if she'd like to Skype this evening, and she responded with, "Why do you want to talk to me all of a sudden?" I told her I'd just like to catch up and apologize for being so busy as of late. Haven't received an answer just yet, but I'll try my best to update tonight if we get the chance to talk. Once again, thank you everyone. I'll try to respond to as many comments as possible. I'm not receiving any good advice from those close to me, so this is insanely beneficial. Edit 2. Skyping with Kate tonight. She agreed a lot more excitedly than I had anticipated, judging by her preceding texts. We chatted for just a little bit afterward, and oddly, she brought up the fact that she had recently watched Rush and commented on how hot Chris Hemsworth is. I was a bit thrown off for obvious reasons, given that she had not only confessed to being a lesbian but verbatim told me she's not attracted to men. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, so I just agreed that yes, Chris Hemsworth is indeed gifted, and told her I couldn't wait to talk tonight. I'm still very nervous. Update. So, I received an invitation to Kate and John's wedding today. It reminded me of this whole thing, and more importantly, the fact that I never really thanked everyone for all your supportive comments and advice. Thank you very, very much. Plenty of people have been asking for an update, but honestly, I became so busy with prepping to move that Reddit was not on my list of priorities. So on to the update. I went through with the Skype chat as planned. Luckily, I had successfully caught Kate alone. We small-talked for hardly a minute because my nerves were buzzing and I wanted to get this over with. I jumped right to it and explained to her why I'd been distancing myself, that John's behavior was seriously concerning. I listed to her the exact events that had made me feel uncomfortable, both for her safety and mine. She listened in dead silence, as I'm certain this had not been her expectation for the chat. After I'd finished, I asked why she would want to spend her life with this man, especially since she'd confided in me her sexual orientation. Kate broke down pretty quickly and, to sum it up, she's been in love with me since high school. I can't put into proper words how I feel about this part. Yes, as some of you had suggested, Kate and John had been trying to set up a threesome the entire weekend I was there. I asked her whose idea it had been, and she said it was hers, but that John was incredibly excited at the suggestion. She admitted to having planned the entire thing out with John before even inviting me to visit. She said they planned to see if the intimacy would come naturally and then try and initiate if that were not the case. I asked her why she was okay with John acting so coercive, and she said he'd promised to make it happen no matter what. After I hadn't caught the hint the past 2 nights, she said she felt desperate to be with me intimately and would do anything for that to happen. I asked her, even if it meant having to force me? And she said, maybe so, but I would enjoy it eventually, that I would probably have just given in and she could join if John had followed through. Not going to lie, this made me feel fucking sick. But I set those feelings aside and told her very gently that I don't reciprocate her romantic feelings, but I still care for her as a friend. I told her that I feared for her safety and happiness and only wanted to help. Well, that completely flipped a switch. Honestly, I've never seen Kate angry. She's a passive person to a fault, but holy shit, did she lose it on me. Kate made a total 180 and began making accusations that didn't make sense. That I was trying to steal John away from her and that I can't have him. That his sexual aggression toward me, as well as my past sexual assault, was directly my fault due to how I dress and present myself. That all her insecurities are my fault because she has to put up with John talking about how I look and asking why she can't act more like me. I enjoy doing my makeup and hair, wearing dresses and heels when I go out, while Kate wears only baggy clothing and does nothing to her hair or face. It's always been this way, we just have different styles. Anyhow, she ended her tirade telling me to kill myself. So honestly, I hung up after that. I feel as though Kate is dealing with issues that are far out of my league to assist with, and I couldn't continue speaking to her. My internship is over now, so I'm home and away from both of them. During my internship, they both attempted to contact me multiple times, but I always deleted the messages. Kate simply ignored what had transpired between us and asked why I wouldn't speak to her. Then John made a few jokes about kidnapping me. I only saw the both of them once during my entire internship. I had the chance to attend a large pop culture convention, and I was seriously so stoked about it despite having no friends to go with. Luckily, I found a couple of girls on Facebook through my internship group page who were also looking for people to go with. I knew for a fact Kate and John would be going as they attend every year, plus the costume I chose to wear was near unmissable, so I was certain they would notice me, but honestly, I was not about to let them spoil the event for me. I went anyway. I gave the girls a rundown of the situation, and they all assured me they had my backs. Lo and behold, as I'm standing in an autograph line with my friend, who hugs me from behind but John, I basically went into spaz mode and flailed until he let go. Dickhead acted confused. Kate was right beside him, being quiet. I'd like to say that I told him off like a champ, but I didn't. I was scared, honestly, so I just ran. I was wearing massive heels, so I had to do that weird crouch move where you're not really running but more so fast walking like a werewolf. A couple of the girls followed me to make sure I was good. Never saw them again. I know the general consensus was to not cut Kate out of my life, but I honestly do not believe either of them are safe to be around. I feel that Kate is dealing with something beyond what I can assist with, and my personal safety needs to come first. Obviously, I'm not going to the wedding. Thank you for all the helpful advice and support I received on my previous post. Now on to the next story. Story 8. A spoiled adopted sister gave a speech at her birthday party calling me a failure, saying that's why they adopted her. Then, our aunt revealed she's actually my sister's birth mother. I have been brought up alongside my adoptive younger sister, Angela, and she is, for the lack of better or more accurate adjectives, a total spoiled brat and a horrible person in general. We are just a year apart in age. I am 19 and she's 18. A few days back, we celebrated her birthday. Her birthdays have always been a huge deal because she likes to make a whole thing out of it, and our parents also go along with it, and this time was no different. I celebrated my 19th birthday a couple of months ago, but it was relatively different because I did not have a huge party. I just went out with a couple of friends and spent the day with them. For me, that was good enough, and that's exactly what I had wanted because I really don't like huge parties or crowds. But that's Angela's thing, and whatever, if she likes it, then good for her. However, for some reason, she decided to use that against me to humiliate me during her party. After everybody had come over and the guests were enjoying themselves, she decided that she was going to make a speech. At the beginning, she just thanked everybody and stuff, and it was pretty normal. Then, she moved to our parents and started thanking them for having adopted her into the family. Then, she thanked them for treating her better than their own daughter, which is why she always had such huge blowout parties for her birthdays, but I never did. That was where things started getting weird because I felt like it was getting too personal for me because, anyway, it was true, Angela had always been treated slightly better than me and got away with most things. But for her to bring it up like that, especially in the context of birthdays, since the reason I did not have such huge parties was because I did not want that, it was just weird. Then it started to get worse, and she started flexing about how she had always been the better daughter to our parents, and she was so grateful to them for having raised her differently so that she didn't turn out to be a failure like me. I don't know on what basis she called me a failure and herself a success, but she was just saying things at that point, and it was getting pretty nasty. She just kept dissing me over and over again, and all I could do was to stand there in shock because I had not been expected to be put on the spot like that. She made fun of my appearance, my grades, and even my style. And lastly, she wrapped things up by speaking about how grateful she was that I was such a failure because that was probably why our parents had adopted her, so they would at least have one daughter who was not a total loser. After she ended her nasty little speech, everyone was dumbstruck, including our parents. I couldn't even bring myself to move or say anything because I was so shocked and humiliated at that moment because even though Angela and I did not get along at all, this was something really extreme, and I don't think anybody had seen it coming. And then, while we were all frozen in our places, my aunt decided to break the tension and walked over to where I was standing so she could hand over an envelope to me. It was really confusing, but I took the envelope from her, and she told me not to open it until she was done talking, so I did just that. The second speech of the evening was somehow even more insane than whatever Angela had said and managed to top even her in terms of the shock factor because that's how we found out that Angela hadn't been adopted by any adoption agency. She had been adopted by our parents from our aunt herself. My aunt announced that she had been planning to talk to our parents after the party to tell them that she wanted to speak to Angela about her real parentage since now that she was 16, she was old enough to handle the truth. Back when she had gotten pregnant with Angela, she was not ready to be a mother yet, but she did not want to terminate the pregnancy either. She and her boyfriend were not even committed and did not have any plans to marry either. So, she went with the next best option and asked my mother, her older sister, to adopt her baby. My mom gladly agreed because she didn't want a sibling for me, but given the complications in her first pregnancy, she wasn't sure if getting pregnant again would be a good idea. So, this was a good solution for both of them, and they decided to work it out but kept it all a secret from everybody else since they didn't want the family to start gossiping. My aunt talked about how she had always believed that if her daughter was being raised by my mother, she was going to grow up to be a wonderful person, but clearly, she had been wrong, judging by the incident that had just taken place because no decent person in their right mind would ever try to humiliate their sibling the way Angela had tried to do, and my aunt was ashamed of her. I finally felt a bit vindicated when my aunt said that because I felt like there was finally somebody to stand up for me. Then, my aunt told me to open the envelope, and when I did, I found a blank check inside, and she told me that I could fill in my details and whatever amount I quoted would be mine. Initially, she had planned on handing this to her daughter as a birthday gift, but now that she had seen how her daughter had turned out to be, she had no interest in giving her any sort of gift at all. Then my aunt walked out of the party, and Angela completely lost it. I'm not even joking. She literally came running towards me to grab the check out of my hands, but I was quick enough to take it out of her reach, and my parents had to pull her back because she was acting so hysterical. It did not even matter to her that she had just found out who her actual mother was. All she cared about was the blank check. But I decided not to fight with her in front of those people, so I went back to my room and locked myself in, and I did not leave my room for almost 2 hours. I could hear things going on in the living room downstairs, but I did not bother myself with it and just kept talking to my friends so I could keep my nerves calm. When I finally came out of my room, everybody had left, and Angela was crying on the couch with my parents seated beside her. As soon as they saw me, my parents told me that they were really sorry about everything that had happened at the party, and then they made Angela apologize to me as well. But it was very obvious to me that she did not actually mean the apology. She was only saying sorry for the sake of it because our parents were sitting right there, and they had probably instructed her to apologize to me. I knew that she was unwilling to even act sorry, so I said nothing to her apology. But then my parents told me that now that Angela had apologized, I needed to give that check to her because it was rightfully hers. It was then that I chose to finally speak up, and I told them that I was not going to do that because it was not rightfully hers anymore. My aunt had planned to give it to her, but after what she had done, it had been handed over to me right in front of them, so rightfully it was mine now, and they could not emotionally manipulate me into forgiving Angela and handing over the check to her. After I said that, Angela started crying as loudly as she could. So much so that it felt like she was trying to drown out the sound of everything else, but I did not allow that to get to me. I kept trying to speak over the sound of her crying, and I said that for years, they had both treated Angela like she was above everybody else, and now she had actually started to believe that because otherwise she would never have thought that she could make such a humiliating and nasty speech about me in front of so many people and get away with it. Nobody in their right mind would do such a thing and expect the victim of their actions to be fine with it, except for maybe my parents and Angela because they were just that entitled. However, I had had enough of this being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home, and that speech that Angela had made had been the last straw. She and I had had our fair share of differences, but there was no explanation or excuse for this, and now I was going to take the money that my aunt had handed over to me and make sure that I moved out as soon as possible. I was already staying away for most of the year because I was in college right now, and I'd only come back home for my semester break, but now I was never going to come back again. I told them that I was done with this family because, truth be told, this had never been my family in the first place. Even though Angela was the one who had been adopted into the family, I was always the one who had been treated like an outcast, and they had never made me feel like I was one of their own. While I was saying these things, Angela started crying even louder and louder. I don't even know how she was managing to do that, but it got to the point where her voice was literally breaking, and my parents had to intervene, saying that I was making her upset and that I needed to leave because I was being selfish and mean on purpose, and that's not what this family stood for. They told me that Angela had already apologized for the little speech that she had made and she was sorry about everything. But if I couldn't find it in myself to forgive her, then I could leave since I was done with this family. My parents were pretty clear about what they wanted, so I went upstairs to my room, packed my bags, and walked out that very instant. I could have gone to stay with my friends, but I decided to head over to my aunt's place on purpose because I had a lot of questions and I needed to talk to her. So, I have been staying with her since then. My classes don't start again for a few weeks, so I think I'm going to be staying with her until then, and it has made my family reasonably upset, so that's a good thing as well. Anyway, after all that had happened, I really did not think that my family would stoop so low as to try and contact me again just because they wanted the money. But 2 days after I left, my parents decided to reach out to me once again because they believed that I couldn't just abandon my family like this simply because the circumstances were tough. They had been trying to call me, but I did not answer, so they decided to start texting me instead, and that's when I decided to reply to them. Angela hadn't sent me anything. It had mostly been my parents blowing up my phone with messages saying that I needed to come back to them. It was all the same nonsense about how we were family, how we needed to stick together as one unit, that Angela was really sorry, and apparently she had only made that speech as a prank, that sibling rivalry shouldn't get so intense that it ruins families. It was really annoying for me to be reading these messages because they were all just so tone-deaf. It made me feel like no matter what had happened, it was my responsibility to fix things, forgive Angela, and make sure that everyone was happy. Besides, I knew that they were not reaching out to me because they suddenly actually cared for me. They were reaching out because they wanted that check. So I decided to mess with them, and here is where I might have been the A in this situation because yesterday, after being bothered by my parents for several days, I decided to send them a message saying that I was ready to hand over the check to Angela, but only on one condition. The condition that I set forth was that Angela would have to publicly apologize to me, and my parents would have to publicly disown her if they wanted me to hand over the check. If they were ready to agree to my terms, I was ready to speak to them. If not, I told them that they did not need to bother reaching back out to me again because I was simply not interested in anything that they had to say if they were going to try and bargain with me. Of course, I have no actual intention of sticking to any of this. I just wanted to mess with them and play some games. I just wanted to put them in a very difficult spot, and I think I succeeded because ever since I sent that message, all three of them have been messaging me nonstop trying to get me to be reasonable, and they have even said that they are all ready to apologize to me publicly, but disowning Angela seems a bit extreme of a punishment for them. However, I have made it very clear that I'm not going to change my terms, and if they want the check, they're going to have to do as I say. They can forget about the money. My aunt thinks it's a bit twisted, but she's fine with it because she had witnessed firsthand how I had been treated at the party. It's actually my friends who think that I'm taking things way too far, and now that I think about it, I might actually be taking it too far since I don't have any intentions of living up to what I said even if they do what I said. Besides, it's not like they can sue me for it since we are not under contract or whatever. AITA for playing mind games with my family after I was humiliated at my sister's birthday party? Edit. Angela has known that she had been adopted at birth since she was 5 years old, and I was also told about it around the same time. Back then, it was really not a big deal for either of us because we were way too young to understand what it meant. And then later on, as we grew older, she learned to come to terms with it, and it has nothing to do with me, so I didn't really care about it. I have never brought it up in an argument or whatever and have never used it against her until, of course, the incident that took place recently. I think at that time it was necessary for me to speak about it because things had gone way too far for me to handle in a dignified manner. Anyway, that was that. Now, a lot of you had been asking how nobody in the family had ever managed to find out that my aunt had been pregnant and how everyone just came to accept that Angela was my mom's daughter if she hadn't been pregnant at all at the time since these things show. Well, from whatever my aunt has told me, the two of them had been living out of state at the time and came back home very rarely. So while she was pregnant, they would keep their visits home short and secretive so that nobody would be able to find out that my aunt was pregnant and my mom was in fact. They did not even announce or tell anyone about the pregnancy until the baby was actually born. It was very difficult, but they managed to hide the pregnancy, and only my grandparents and a couple of other people in the family who could be trusted with a secret were aware of this. The rest of the extended family and stuff had no idea until recently. My aunt is still unmarried and has never had kids. It's just not her thing, but she wanted to build a relationship with Angela because that's her actual daughter. She had no intention of becoming a maternal figure to her or replacing my mom in her life, so to speak, but she wanted to at least tell her the truth because she figured that it was about time. However, she changed her mind after whatever went down at the party the other day. It's a huge loss for Angela, I'm being honest, because as you guys may have guessed by now, my aunt is pretty loaded. She works in a pretty high-level corporate position and had even been supporting our parents in the past couple of years after she had saved enough money for herself and gotten promoted a couple of times so she could show them how thankful she was to them for having adopted Angela. Now, though, I don't think she's going to keep doing that anymore, so it really is a huge loss for all of them. Update 1. Thank you to everybody who reached out to me and commented on my post. I guess I didn't need to make a decision about what I wanted to do at all because 3 days after I gave them the ultimatum and set forth the condition, my parents reached out to me and told me that this wasn't going to be easy and that they needed more time to think about what they wanted to do. Angela did not text me at all. Then, 3 days from then, today, they decided to reach out to me once again and told me that I had put them in a very difficult position and that it was very unfair for me to be putting them through this right now, as if that matters to me after whatever they had put me through so many years. Anyway, They told me that Angela was on board with whatever I had said. She was ready to publicly apologize for the check, and she also thought that it would be fine for them to publicly disown her since she didn't think that they would have to stick to it. I did say that they needed to make that announcement publicly, but I couldn't enforce it, and that was true. It was a loophole, but if they decided to use that loophole and continue to have a good relationship even after my parents made an announcement about publicly disowning her, it would just reflect badly on my parents and her because it would be quite weird and spineless. So they were in a stalemate right now because they could agree that it was fine for Angela to apologize publicly, but they were not ready to publicly disown her because then if they continued to have a relationship with her, it would reflect badly on them, and they were not ready to toy with their reputation over something like this. They have been fighting over this for the past couple of days, and right now, even Angela is not on speaking terms with my parents. So they are trying to get me to understand where they are coming from, and for whatever reason, they genuinely believe that they can reason with me at the moment. I don't know why they believe it or why they even think that texting me continuously is going to make me change my mind about anything. I already know for a fact that regardless of what they do in the future, I'm not going to give up that check under any circumstances. I just wanted to play with them, and I guess once they have made a decision, I'm going to tell them about it and let them know what an actual prank is. Unlike what Angela had been claiming to do at her birthday party a couple of days back. Update 2. Hi, so it's been 2 days since my last update, and today I finally decided to respond to my parents because I had been ignoring their texts so far since they were only trying to reason with me and bargain with me, and I was not interested in that. Anyway, today I finally came to them and I told them that I did not need a decision from them at all because so far I had only been playing with them. I actually did not have any intention of handing over the check to them regardless of what they decided so they could stop beating themselves up over this. I just wanted them to be in a tough spot and see how they would deal with it and show them exactly how much of a priority they were in Angela's life, which I guess they now have a hint of. They rank somewhere below a ton of money. Anyway, after sending that message, I blocked them all and decided to get on with my day. But, of course, this was not acceptable to them, and they decided to start trying to contact me from burner phones. At first, I did not realize what was happening, so I ended up picking up a few calls. And as soon as I realized it was them on the other end of the line, I hung up immediately. Since then, I haven't answered any calls from unidentified numbers. So they started creating accounts on social media just so they would be able to contact me since I had blocked their personal accounts. And all they have had to say so far is that I am a terrible person, I do not deserve to be a part of this family, and that whatever I have been putting them through it's downright psychotic and I deserve to be institutionalized. None of that really makes a difference to me because I know that I was just messing with them and it's a very small and petty sort of revenge for everything that I have been through all these years. They should actually be grateful to me that I have decided to end here and not try and drag this out further only to punish them because I'm more interested in moving on from this nonsense. But yeah, they should just be happy that I didn't do anything worse than this. Anyway, I'm just going to be ignoring all the calls and messages because in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be back to college anyway. So none of this really makes a difference to me. And if they think that they can keep bothering me and I'll bow down to them or something, they couldn't be more wrong. When I said that I was done with them, I really completely meant it, and they're going to see that now. Update 3. Hey, so today Angela found out that I have been living at my aunt's place ever since I left. It was purely by accident because she decided to show up here this morning, and I was the one who opened the door without checking who was outside since I had been waiting for a food delivery. As soon as I saw that it was Angela, I tried to shut the door, but it was too late and she forced her way in and immediately started yelling at me, saying that I was trying to steal her life. She accused me of first stealing the money that was supposed to be hers, and now I was even stealing her mother from her. That's when my aunt entered the room and she told both of us to lay off of each other because she did not want things to get heated or violent. And she explained to Angela that it was her own behavior that had made her hand over the check to me, so it was quite unfair to be blaming me for any of that. And even now, if she had actually come over to build a relationship with her mother, it should have been with the purpose of purely building a relationship and not the check. That episode was done and dusted with, and constantly bringing it up did not make her change her opinion about Angela. It was only going to make it worse. My aunt was quite reasonable and polite, probably because she did not want to hurt Angela's feelings since it seemed as if she was already going through a lot. Her behavior was pretty hysterical, but Angela decided to start screaming at my aunt as well and told her that she had no right to be telling her what to do because she had abandoned her as a baby and now she had to make up for it. She couldn't just take my side all the time and expect her to be fine with it. That was totally unfair and completely untrue since Angela had definitely not been abandoned. She had been adopted by people that her mother trusted, and there was nothing wrong with that. My aunt even said that she had wanted to speak to her about the truth several times, but it was my parents who had said that she needed to wait it out until she was an adult so it would be easier for her to deal with, and so it was really unfair of her to be blaming her mother for everything. She didn't have anything to apologize or make it up to Angela for. Her expectations were completely off on that one. But Angela did not seem to care. She just kept screaming at my aunt until she was forced out of the house. My aunt lost her temper as well, pushed her out, and told her that if she came back, she would call the cops. Angela kept screaming outside our house and stomping her foot, throwing a complete temper tantrum for a couple of minutes, but then she left. So this morning was totally crazy, and honestly, I can't wait to be back in college because I just need to get away from here. Update 4. So, I'm back in college now, and I'm so relieved to be away from all the drama. The last few weeks that I spent back in my hometown were not that great because Angela had found out that I was staying with my aunt, and well, you guys also know what happened because I had mentioned it in my last update. A couple of days after that, she showed up with my parents, and there was a huge fight between all of us. My parents accused me of trying to steal Angela's life, which she had already done herself, and my aunt tried to defend me once again, but my parents started telling her that she was pushing her own kid to the sidelines and that was completely unfair. I don't think they realized how ironic it was coming from their end because that's exactly what they have been doing to me all these years. And when I brought it up with them, they started denying it. They told me that I had always got whatever I wanted, and yet I was so greedy that I couldn't even let Angela have one thing, that check that everybody was after. They even accused my aunt of being stingy because she earned so much more than they did as a family, and yet she couldn't just write Angela another check. I don't think they understood that it was not about the money for her. It was about a matter of principles. My aunt tried to explain it to them, but I didn't even think that they were capable of understanding. Eventually, it all just turned into a shouting match and everybody was yelling at one another at the top of their lungs so loudly that the neighbors ended up calling the cops. After that, my parents left with Angela and promised that they would never speak to us again, and I'm fine with that to be honest. But from what I know, Angela has continued trying to get in touch with my aunt behind my parents' back, probably because she thinks that she still stands a chance to get some sort of financial help from her. But that's my aunt's thing to deal with, so I'm not going to intrude on that. At least I have my check and I have cashed it in, and I don't want to sound like I'm showing off, but I'm going to come into a lot of money soon enough and I'm also going to be smart enough to put it aside for my future just like my aunt advised me to. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Hey there. This story has already been covered on my channel before, but there are new updates. Wife confessed to drunk cheating. I turned into a robot and kicked her out. She tried everything to win me back, even offering threesomes, but I chose divorce. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, Kate, 31F, for 4 years, together for 9. Our relationship has been amazing, loving, and supportive. We have good communication, hardly ever argue, and our bedroom life has gone from strength to strength over the years. We discussed cheating in the past, and I was always clear that we would be over if it ever happened. Kate went home to visit her family last weekend, which was fairly normal. Before she left on the Friday night, we had a minor argument about keeping the house tidy. So our communication was limited on Saturday. But I knew she was going out to meet some friends at a bar. I trusted her 100%, so I didn't think anything of it. Before I fell asleep, I texted her saying that I hope she had a nice night. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I had a missed call from Kate at 4 a.m., so I immediately called her to check if she was okay, but no answer. After a few hours, I tried again a few times, but still no answer. Around an hour later, I got a message saying she was fine and was driving back soon. Kate got home late afternoon and looked awful. She had clearly been crying, was not wearing any makeup, unusual for her, and looked like a shell of a person. I knew right away something was wrong, but she wouldn't let me hug her and would barely speak. I sat her down on the couch and made her some tea. I gently encouraged her to tell me what was wrong, and she burst into uncontrollable tears for at least 10 minutes while I was trying to comfort her. She then proceeded to tell me, stopping every few words, that she had slept with someone last night after the bar. At that moment, something in my brain broke. I can't describe it any other way. I immediately got up and jumped in my car and drove off. I went to a park and walked around it for about an hour. Kate was calling my phone constantly, and I turned it off. When I got home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage and went to our bedroom. I threw some of Kate's clothes and shoes into them and left them by the front door. Kate was lying on the floor in the living room, curled up into a ball, sobbing. I called her best friend, who lives nearby, and told her that Kate needed a place to stay and a ride to her place, and that Kate could explain everything to her later. I told Kate I was leaving for an hour and that her friend was coming to pick her up. She grabbed onto my legs, trying to stop me from leaving. When I returned home again, Kate was gone, and so were the cases. On Monday, with a clearer head, I answered one of Kate's many calls and told her that I needed her to send me an email with as much details as possible that night, and if she leaves anything out, there will be no hope of reconciliation. I received this email on Monday night but still haven't opened it. Since then, everyone has been trying to contact me, but I have just been working, exercising, and sleeping. One of her friends turned up at my house with an attitude, demanding an explanation. I told her to speak to Kate and closed the door in her face. I have also been speaking to divorce lawyers, have moved money into separate accounts, and blocked Kate and all of her friends on everything. Everything I have done since I found out seems like I've been on autopilot. I don't feel angry, upset, or overly emotional, just numb. Kate posted a note through the door yesterday asking me to meet tomorrow, but I'm conflicted. Should I meet her? Will it change anything? Is there any point in trying to reconcile? Is it normal to feel like a robot, and how do I snap out of this? Edit. Just to add that when I came home the first time, Kate confirmed it was consensual. She was drunk but knew what she was doing. Update 1. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her, and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with 2 friends, I know and like both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner. A few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27M, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had a major crush on Kate since high school, and I had heard them joke about this. The 4 of them went to get some food, and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so she would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber but couldn't get one. Max suggested she should crash in his bed and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed, and he kissed her. She kissed him back, and they ended up having sex. After that, she broke down crying from guilt, and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number of times because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me, blah blah blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month, we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that we would both remain faithful, would get a full STD panel, and she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but I need to be 100% certain. Update 2. A few things have happened in the last week. so I thought I would make an update post if anyone is interested. First of all, I'm not in robot mode anymore. I've been having bursts of intense feelings of anger and betrayal, but I've been keeping busy with work and exercise. My friends have also been great since they found out and have been dragging me out of the house to hang out. I decided to read the email and wish I hadn't. The story Kate told in the email was mostly the same, but there was no mention of going into Max's apartment to order an Uber. There were also pretty explicit details of what they did, for how long, and that they had apparently used a condom. I will never be able to forget this description. Many people who were originally criticizing me for kicking Kate out of the house have now apologized. But they can keep it. Kate's parents reached out to apologize, and I spoke to them because we had a good relationship before all of this. They begged me to try to work it out, but said they understood if I decided to get divorced. I didn't commit to either option. Kate's other friend that was there that night contacted me to tell me her side of the story. It mostly matched up: bar, food, home. She said Kate could stay over at her house, but she refused, saying she was driving home early the next morning. Max apparently insisted that he would take Kate home. The version of the story that she told didn't mention Kate trying to get an Uber, only that Max invited her in and she accepted. I asked her if she had ever suspected anything before, and she told me that about a year ago she went to meet Kate for coffee but found Max sitting with her when she arrived. Apparently, Kate looked guilty, but when asked about it, she said they just met by chance. Sarah, Max's sister, also reached out to me, and I spoke to her too. She was angry with both Max and Kate and told me a similar story. Apparently, her whole family are angry with Max, and she had not spoken to Kate since she found out. She apologized on behalf of her idiot brother and said she had warned him to stay away from Kate since high school. She didn't think anything else had happened between them. I have had zero contact from Kate, but heard that she was going to be moving into an Airbnb near our house. Apparently, she is not coping well and called in sick from work a few times over the last few weeks. She does have support from the friend she is currently living with, and I asked her parents to keep an eye on her. Her parents came up to see her this past weekend. I went out with some friends at the weekend and ended up drunk at a bar. I was talking to a girl there who I probably could have gone home with, but I stopped myself because I wanted to keep my self-respect. Reading the email and hearing what they had done made me give up hope of repairing this, especially when I know she is not being truthful with me on other things. So, who knows? I will be moving ahead with the divorce and might not even wait a month before telling Kate that this is my final decision. Update 3. I debated posting this update, but a lot of people seem to be invested in this mess, so here it is. Apologies in advance if this is TMI. Kate sent me an email last week asking to pick up some things she needed for work. My lawyer told me not to prevent her from having access to the house or her possessions, so I reluctantly agreed that she could come over on Thursday night when I would be at the gym. I told her to be out by 7:30, but when I got home at 8 o'clock, she was still there. When I walked in, she had left a few work-related items next to the stairs, and she was chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked amazing, with her hair and makeup done, wearing one of the dresses I like. The whole place had been tidied and cleaned. I calmly asked her to leave immediately, and she made her way to the door but stopped and asked if we could speak. I should have said no, but I eventually agreed. We sat down and had a conversation for around an hour, which jumped from topic to topic. Again, I told her I would record the audio, and she agreed. I started by asking her if she had kept her side of the agreement we made the last time we spoke. She said she had taken an STI test, which was all negative, mine was too, thankfully, and a pregnancy test, which was negative. She hadn't been with anyone else and also told a few friends and family what happened, and many of them were angry and were not speaking to her. I asked a lot of questions that had been turning over in my mind for the last few weeks. She confirmed that her reason for going into Max's apartment, the Uber story, was BS, and she said he invited her in for a drink, and she agreed, knowing at some level that something was going to happen. She can't explain why she did this other than being selfish and enjoying the attention. She also confirmed that she had texted with Max a few times over the years because he would shower her with compliments and make her feel good. He would always initiate, and she was apparently careful not to lead him on and said she had never sent him explicit messages or pictures. Kate also told me that they had hooked up about 6 months before we got together but never had sex. She admitted that she was always a bit curious. Her story about being caught at the coffee shop was that Max had texted her asking what she was up to, and she had told him where she was. He then turned up. She swore this was the first time they had ever done anything since we had been together. She said there was nothing missing in our relationship, and she hates herself for ruining her perfect marriage and causing me so much pain. I told her that I still don't believe her story, and that there was no point in continuing the conversation. She calmly asked what she would need to do to make this right, offering up her phone, location sharing, not going out without me, etc. She had clearly been doing some research. I said that I had no plans to become her prison guard, especially when I would never get over the betrayal. Things then took an unexpected turn which caught me completely off guard. She asked me to turn off the audio recording because she had something private she wanted to discuss and didn't want other people hearing it. I refused, and she reluctantly continued. She asked if I had been involved with anyone else sexually since all of this happened, making it clear she was fine with it. I told her no, and she said that I must be going crazy. We used to have sex almost daily, and started talking dirty about all of the things I could do with Slash to her. This involved a lot of kinky things that I had wanted to try or had only done a few times. She said she wanted to meet my needs even if we did not get back together. She said we could have as many threesomes as I wanted from now on, or we could be open on my side only, and she would even find partners for me. She was trying very hard to turn me on, and I stayed silent until she asked who I wanted to have a threesome with. For some reason, I mentioned the name of her coworker, who is 5 years younger than Kate and a total knockout. This surprised her, but she was in too deep and asked me what I wanted to do with her. I went into detail about a pretty hardcore scenario, and Kate was encouraging me until I said that she would just be watching. This again caught her off guard, but she went along with it. Later on, I realized that I only said all of this as a petty attempt to hurt Kate, which I don't feel good about. She was obviously convinced that her plan was working, so she pulled up her dress and got into my favorite position on the couch, begging me to have sex with her. I'll admit that for a few seconds my body reacted even though my head was not in the game. Everything suddenly came into focus, and the content of her email came flooding into my head. I can't explain why, but I started to laugh. Not just a chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh. She looked hurt and moved away, then started to cry. I told her it was time for her to go, and she left quickly, probably due to the embarrassment. I also said she needed to hurry up and get a lawyer because we are getting divorced. The post-nut clarity after she left confirmed that I had dodged a bullet. I have a meeting with my lawyer later this week and want to move forward with the divorce as quickly as possible. Update 4. I thought I would provide a final update on the situation for anyone that is interested. The last few months have been tough, and I have only seen Kate in person a handful of times. After a few weeks of no contact, I decided that we should discuss things with a clearer head. We went for lunch and had a calm, respectful conversation about everything that had happened and what reconciliation might look like. Kate said she would do anything to get things back on track, and I believe her but didn't commit to anything. After that, Kate asked me to go with her to see her therapist, who is also experienced in dealing with married couples. I thought about it for a few days before agreeing. The session was tough, with a lot of tears, but I didn't get a straight answer on why Kate had decided to cheat. The therapist was surprisingly fair to both of us and was not judgmental. We again discussed reconciliation, but I told her that I thought it was best to proceed with the divorce. Last week, I drove up to her parents' house to drop off some tools I had borrowed from her dad. We had arranged for Kate to be there and for her parents to go out for a few hours to give us a chance to talk. I spoke with her parents alone, who were heartbroken, which was hard, but they were both very supportive. During the conversation with Kate, I told her clearly that I had given it a lot of thought but I wanted to move ahead with the divorce. It came down to the fact that, in my view, we would never get back to where we were, and I realistically can't see myself ever getting over the betrayal. Even if we could regain the trust, it could take a decade of hard work, and that is too big of a risk for me. Kate finally accepted this, and we had a calm discussion about how we would divide assets, sell the house, etc., and wrote an email to our respective lawyers. We left each other on good terms. The divorce should be finalized by the end of the year, and the house will be put up for sale soon. In the meantime, we will go no contact and agreed not to start dating until everything is finalized. I have had a few casual hookups, and it feels strange to be going back to being single after all this time. I have been hitting the gym, spending a lot of time with friends and family, and getting back into my hobbies. I'm optimistic about the future, and although I'm still devastated by the loss of my marriage, I feel that this has made me grow as a person. Thanks to those of you who have offered advice and support. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Japanese wife hated our son's black girlfriend for not being good enough. Then she finally admitted she was jealous of her success and had been racist our whole marriage. I, 53, am white. My wife of 30 years, Naomi, is Japanese. We have 3 kids. This story focuses on my oldest son, Kyle, 28. When Kyle first got to college, he began dating a Japanese girl, and when he introduced her to my wife, Naomi loved her. They didn't end up working out, but for the past 3 years, my son has been seeing Danny, a black girl. My son was in medical school across the country, and he ended up meeting Danny because they both were volunteers at a soup kitchen. I remember the first time he sent a picture of her. My wife immediately didn't like her. I'm going to try to phrase this without sounding ignorant myself, but she looks like the urban black girl most think of when thinking of African American women. She has the big hoop earrings, the long nails, the long eyelashes. I think she looks stunning, but I've never been in a situation where I was involved in African American culture. Recently, my son moved back to our city for residency, and Danny moved with him and started law school. They were staying in an Airbnb while looking for a place, and this week they finally found one. So they invited us over for dinner. Danny cooked soul food, and this stuff was amazing. I complimented her food, and my wife gave me the side eye. Naomi then pulled out her phone and asked Danny, "Why does she dress like that? And why was she twerking in public?" Kyle asked his mom what her problem was. I then took the phone to scroll through Danny's Instagram, and while she did have some videos of her having fun, she also had plenty of pictures of her academic achievements. Before Danny could answer, I told my wife, "Danny is young and having fun." I asked, "Did she see that Danny graduated cum laude or all the time she volunteered?" My wife looked angry that I would bring that up. Naomi then said that she thinks that Danny isn't good enough for our son. Danny then asked why Naomi loved Kyle's ex so much. She didn't graduate with honors. She has many different boys that she posted on social media. Danny then said, "It's evident the reason Naomi doesn't like her is because of her race." Naomi doubled down and said, "So what? I've never heard Kyle even disrespect his mother, but he told her to get the fuck out." Naomi left crying. In the car on the ride home, I asked her what was her problem. She asked, "Why didn't I defend her?" I said, "Because she was being a racist and a hypocrite and she's acting just like her parents. Her parents didn't like me because I was white." She just said, "It's different," and was just silent on the way home. And when we got to the house, she locked herself in the room and started crying. I can't feel bad for her because if someone disrespected my wife the way she disrespected Danny, I would have absolutely did the same exact thing Kyle did. But I didn't because I was also harsh toward her in this situation. Update, November 17th, 2024. So, I want to mention a couple of things. First off, I've been around black people. They were never part of my inner circle until Danny came along. Also, I think it is stupid that twerking has a negative connotation. It's just dancing. In the video that my wife found, Danny was at a nightclub. She wasn't at church dancing that way. My daughter, Ari, and her mom are very close, so I asked her to breakfast today and we talked. I just asked her if she knew her mom to be racist. She asked why, and I told her about the incident with Danny. Ari told me, "Everything makes sense now." She said it was subtle, but when she was in high school, she lost a chess match to a Hispanic boy and Naomi said he must have cheated. But during another round, when she lost to a white girl, her mom just said she was really good. She listed a few other incidents, but it was hard to see Ari come to the realization her mom is not who she thought she was. Ari then explained how this is bad because Kyle told her how he was about to propose soon. I guess Ari talked to her before I could, because my wife asked, "How can I bring the kids into the argument?" I said, "This argument is about their brother. Our kids are very close, so they were going to find out eventually." I said, "Since she's done crying, Does she want to explain what last night is about? She said, it's not that serious. I thought, how if my son and Danny got married and had kids? I wouldn't be involved if I chose to stay with Naomi, and that's not a chance I was willing to take. So I packed my bag and told Naomi if she's not even willing to talk to me, I can't stay in this relationship. She said, stop, before I left out the door and started crying again. She admitted to having racist tendencies. She also admitted that she's jealous of Danny. She said she was supposed to succeed like her and be smart like her. She said, it's not fair. I said, it was fair. Growing up, my wife was not poor or had it hard by any means. She had access to tutors, the best schools. I said, that's a sad and pathetic excuse. She then said she was losing both of us to Danny. I asked, how? She talked about how I complimented Danny's cooking but don't like Japanese food. I explained how I'm just not a fan of Japanese food, but I eat it when she makes it. But it can't be about the food because she already had a problem before we got there. I told her, I'm leaving and that until she changes her ways or gets help. I'm not coming back and I'm getting a divorce if she doesn't apologize to Danny and mean it. I've just been driving around since the conversation, and I'm hurt that the love of my life is not who I thought she was. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Wife cheated on me with a guy she told me not to worry about. I found out by checking her phone after I got suspicious. I never imagined I'd be sharing my personal struggles online, but here I am. I'm not just venting. I want to show others that even when your world crumbles, there can be light at the end of the tunnel. My name's Tom, and I'm just an average guy working as a software developer. But this story isn't really about me. It's about my ex-wife, Sarah, and how her actions turned my life upside down. Sarah and I met through mutual friends about 8 years ago. She worked as a realtor and was incredibly passionate about her career. I admired her drive and dedication to her clients. Sarah had this infectious energy, always on the go, always working to improve things for us. She made you feel like anything was possible if you put in the effort. I remember joking when we first met that I'd trust her to help me buy a house and probably a lot more, too. She asked if I meant it and I said yes. We went on our first date to the movies, and she enthusiastically told me all about her favorite films. Conversation flowed so naturally with Sarah that I fell for her quickly. I don't believe in love at first sight, but she came pretty close to making me a believer back then. When we started dating, I knew Sarah had a demanding schedule. Real estate is a tough business with long, unpredictable hours, but I was supportive of her career, which she appreciated. We made a good team, me with my steady 9-to-5 job and her with her more variable schedule. I didn't mind because I knew she loved what she did, and I loved her. There was one thing that bothered me early on, though. Sarah got pretty close with a colleague of hers, who I'll call Mike. Mike worked at the same real estate firm, and they seemed to spend a lot of time together. At first, I didn't think much of it. They were co-workers, after all. But as time went on, I noticed their work meetings becoming more and more frequent. Sarah would often talk about Mike in a way that felt off to me. I'm not typically a jealous person. In fact, I'm the opposite. I wanted Sarah to have the freedom to pursue her career goals, but something about how she'd always take Mike's calls, even during our date nights, really got under my skin. I'd make the occasional comment about how she acted like she was in love with Mike. Sarah would get defensive and snap back at me, but looking back, I wonder if that was more of a guilty reaction than just playful teasing. I brought it up casually once, just to get a read on the situation. You and Mike seem pretty close, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Sarah laughed it off. Oh, Tom, it's nothing. We just work well together. You don't need to worry about him. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something still felt off. Still, I didn't push the issue. We were happy, and I didn't want to create problems over what might be nothing. Eventually, Sarah and Mike started spending less time together after he transferred to a new department. Sarah joked that she was sad to see him go. I joked back that now she was all mine instead of Mike's. But part of me wonders now if that was really a joke after all. A few years into our relationship, I proposed, and Sarah said yes. We got married, bought a house together, and soon after had a beautiful baby girl. Life seemed good. Sure, Sarah was still busy with work, but I figured that came with the territory of being married to someone with a demanding career. Our daughter, Lily, became the center of our world, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But then, Mike started appearing in the picture again. It wasn't constant, but often enough that I noticed. Sarah would casually mention running into him at the office or collaborating on a deal. I told myself it was nothing. After all, we'd been married for years and had a child together. Surely she wouldn't jeopardize all that for some work fling, right? Sarah mentioned one day that Mike had transferred back to their office, something about them needing more staff at that branch. I asked if it would impact her work. Sarah got defensive and insisted nothing was going on. I believed her at the time. She said Mike had recently broken up with his girlfriend but maintained they just worked well as a team, closing deals. About a year ago, things started to change. Sarah began spending more and more time at the office. She'd come home late, claiming she had to stay for closings or client meetings. At first, I didn't question it. This was normal in her line of work, and I knew how stressful the real estate market could be. But as the late nights became more frequent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I started paying closer attention and noticed little things. How she'd suddenly get a text and smile at her phone. How she'd go out of her way to mention how busy Mike was lately. It all seemed too coincidental. Sarah also became less affectionate. We had busy lives and a child, but I noticed she'd often go to bed without even a goodnight kiss. When I'd hug her, she'd tense up before hugging back. Something felt very wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but suspicion began eating away at me. One night, after Sarah came home late again, I decided I had to know for sure. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her phone while she was in the shower. Sure enough, I found flirty text messages between her and Mike, way too intimate for just coworkers. There were vague plans to meet up at odd hours under the guise of showings and client meetings. The final straw was when I checked her location history. I found she'd been going to an address that wasn't listed on any of her recent deals. An address that happened to be Mike's. She'd been lying to me for months, sneaking off to hook up with him while I was at home taking care of our daughter. I was furious. I had no idea how to confront Sarah without completely losing it, so I hatched a plan. I decided to pose as a potential buyer and set up a showing with Sarah and Mike. I wanted to catch them in the act, not just for my own closure but to make Sarah face the consequences of her actions. I called their office, pretending to be interested in a house Sarah and Mike were co-listing. I set up an appointment for a private showing, and they both agreed to meet me there. On the day of the showing, I arrived early and waited in my car. I watched as Sarah and Mike pulled up together, laughing and looking far too comfortable with each other. Then I saw it. They kissed right there in broad daylight. Sarah wasn't even wearing her wedding ring. It told me everything about how little she valued our marriage outside of our home. I wanted to run away and forget what I'd seen, but I knew I had to go through with my plan for my own sake. I got out of the car and approached them. The look on Sarah's face when she saw me was priceless. She froze and Mike went pale. They knew exactly why I was there. I didn't even have to say anything, but I did. I told Sarah that if she wanted to throw away everything we had, she could have Mike. She tried to stammer out an excuse, but I wasn't having it. I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing there speechless. That night, I packed up Sarah's things and told her to leave. I wasn't going to let her continue disrespecting me and our marriage while living under the same roof. I kept Lily with me. There was no way I was letting Sarah take her after everything she'd done. The divorce process was brutal. Sarah tried to play the victim, claiming I was overreacting and that it was just a mistake. But I had all the evidence I needed. In the end, I got full custody of Lily. Sarah was left with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. As for Mike, karma caught up with him too. Turns out he was married and cheating on his wife with Sarah. When Mike's wife found out, she filed for divorce as well. Mike ended up losing his family and his reputation. It's been a tough road, but I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. Lily is my world now, and I'm doing everything I can to give her the best life possible. Being a single dad isn't easy, but I've got a great support system of family and friends. We're making it work. This is my story. It's still painful to think about, to remember how much it hurt to discover that after all the years and hard work I'd put into our relationship, Sarah could hurt me like that. The thought of it still stings, but I'm finally able to move forward. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.